Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Board of Commissioners meeting for Tuesday, January 18, 2022. And the first order of business is the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. And we don't have anyone signed up. Is there anyone in the audience that would wish to come forward and lead us in prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance? Seeing none, I'll ask if our Vice Chair would do us the honors this evening.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for a glorious evening. Lord, thank you for the weather that you've sent recently, the cold, the wind, the rain. Father, for it only makes us appreciate even more springtime and the summertime here in Currituck County, North Carolina. Father, I pray that you would grant this board wisdom this evening, Lord. I pray that you would help us to keenly determine what the issues are before us, Father, that we would rule according to the best interests of Currituck County. Lord, I pray that you would bless us this evening, Father, that you would bless the residents of our county. Lord, especially as between the flu and the newest version of Corona and whatever else befalls us, Lord, I pray that you would heal and help the health of our entire county. Lord, we ask this in Jesus' name.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Beaumont. The next item is the approval of the agenda. Do you have any changes to the agenda, or can I get a motion for approval?
Move to approve.
We have a
Second.
motion, and we have a second. Any other discussions? I have a motion from Mr. White, and the second was Mr. Jarvis. Okay. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. The next item is public comment. The public comment is here for the citizens of Currituck to come before the board, give you 3 minutes of uninterrupted time to speak on any matters you wish, good, bad, or different. It's your time to address the board. You will have a clock at the podium up there that when you see yellow, you got about 30 seconds to wrap up any thoughts you may have, and then the red light, I would just ask you to finish up your closing comments. With that, I have one person signed up, Sean O'Sullivan. If you would like to come forward, please. You didn't write your name, but if you could please state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Sean O'Sullivan. I live at 8156 Currituck Highway in Pals Point.
Thank you, sir.
The Sportsman's Paradise. As residents of Currituck, this is a way of life. This is not just a slogan. It's the beauty of this county that attracts visitors from around the world to experience what we live every day. Whether you're a hunter, a fisherman, or a photographer, Currituck's beauty has a special place in your heart. It is this beauty that attracts countless visitors every day. It is this beauty that has to be protected. Please, close your eyes for a moment. Take a journey with me as I walk through my backyard, a typical backyard in the Sportsman's Paradise. You look up into the sky, and floating on the thermals, there's a breeding pair of bald eagles. We're not sure exactly where their nest is, but we know that it's close. We walk through the backyard, and we witness the evidence of last night's activities. Raccoons track and forage through the brush, hoofprints of white-tailed deer looking for a late-night snack. We check our trail cameras, and we notice plenty of visitors that didn't leave tracks. Possums, foxes, squirrels, and one picture of a very close-up image of a nose, an eye, and an ear that can only be a black bear. He was here last night. We make our way into the woods, and we're surrounded by the beauty of Currituck. Sweet gum maples soaring 70 feet into the high sky surround us. Pine trees so large you can't even put your arms around are interspersed throughout the forest. You look over to the left as we walk through the woods, and you'll notice a waterway. This is a favorite to all of our locals. This small waterway, you'll see everything from crayfish to the occasional river otter. They love this area. This is their home. As we look to the right, we hear a loud noise. Turkey comes through the woods, barely missing the brush. This is our backyard. And of course, Mr. Woodpecker hanging out in the woods, pecking at the trees, looking for some food. This is Currituck. This is our lives. These are the sights and sounds of the sportsman's paradise. These are the sights and sounds of Currituck. Now I'd like you to imagine this beauty, peace, and tranquility ruptured and destroyed by a deafening noise. The sound of diesel water pumps, eternally pumping 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, shatters the air. These diesel pumps are the size of your average family minivan, and they're ear-splitting once you get near them. The noise of rumbling diesel engines rumble through the forest. Hollow, bone-shaking booms as multiple excavators dump tons of soil into empty dump trucks, shatters the tranquil silence. An unbelievable cloud of dust, the which you've never seen, covers the area. This is what this sandpit promises. This sandpit is right next to federally protected waterlands. Please, ladies and gentlemen, protect Currituck. Protect it for our children. Protect it for their children. That's all I ask.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. There's no one else signed up for public comment. Is there anyone who showed up late that wishes to speak that didn't sign up? Yes, sir. If you could come forward, speak, state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Glenn Hines at 3152 Currituck Highway.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Let me proceed. All right. I'm here to talk about Alamo Regional's health section for Currituck County's recent dilemma. Currituck County does more septic tank permits than all other Alamo Regional health counties combined. As of November 21st, Currituck County had 3 working soil evaluators, one of which was unjustifiably terminated after 19 years of impeccable service. Additionally, after over 30 years of distinguished service, one of the other soil evaluators is now retiring as of 2022, this year. Also, the only Secretary and Administrator for Currituck County for over 30 years is retiring March 22nd. Also, 4 years ago, one of the supervisors for the soil evaluators retired 4 years ago, and that position was never replaced. It is now my understanding that Alamo Regional's held 2 current job openings, one for the soil evaluator for Currituck County, the retiring position, and one for Camden County, replacing the terminated position. As of today, there has been only one applicant for the soil evaluator position. Due to a 15-year downturn in public interest in environmental health and soils, there is a very limited field of new applicants from universities. Applicants on the experience side are virtually non-existent. Furthermore, even if Alamo Regional Health is to hire a qualified recruit from a university, it will be 1 to 2 years for he or she can start issuing permits from the soil evaluator position. According to the supervisor position, the one terminated soil evaluator position will take 3 to 5 years to retrain this position. How did this dilemma happen? What are the long-term solutions? What are the pending immediate problems? The Moyock Elementary School expansion project was just approved in November or December. The existing terminated evaluator had evaluated the septic tank system. No septic tank permit for this project has been issued for this important project. Without this septic tank permit, this project cannot move forward. Also today, an alternative septic tank system permit in Corolla was finished after being started in November. The days of the 1 to 2 week septic tank turnaround for permit is over. It remains to be seen how long the public and the private sector is going to wait for Alamo Regional Health Service to start issuing permits when the private sector has new alternatives to start doing their job. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hines. Have no one else signed up. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak that didn't get a chance to sign up for public comment?
Can we ask Mr. Hines a question?
I mean, this is a time for public comment, just to, I guess it's,
Mr. Hines, how long does it take for a permit to be issued now? I know it used to be 1 to 2 weeks, maybe 3.
Latest is 3 to 4.
Okay, thank you.
okay, thank you. All right, this time I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment portion of this and move on to the next item, which is our commissioner's report. And I'm going to start off to my right this evening and start with Commissioner Owen Etheridge.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The other night, I was looking at some YouTube videos that I watch on farming exercises out in the Midwest, and I ran across one that had just posted from a podcast called Heroes Next Door, and it was on the Corolla Fire and Rescue. It's like a 30-minute YouTube, and Chief Shortway was host, and the guy's name is Mike Borello, who does this, and he goes around all over the East Coast to various fire departments and highlights them. He's done 2. He did one on the 4-wheel drive fire truck that they have at Corolla, and then the one on the Corolla station, both the old station and the Pine Island station. So I would recommend people to look it up. It's Heroes Next Door, a look at the inside the lives. And it's excellent video on Currituck County, and it made me think. I look at Corolla. Chief Shortway came here from, I believe, New Jersey. And there's so many people in Currituck that came from many different places. But we're all now in this one place called Currituck, and we all work together to make it a better place. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Owen. Commissioner McCord.
I saw Chief Shortway today when I was in Corolla. Very, very, very good gentleman. This last Sunday, I had the honor to assist with the Wounded Warrior in Action Ride. Brooke Sparks has put that event on, and I always get the years wrong. I want to say this was the 17th, but I may be wrong. It might be less, but I didn't get a chance to look that up. But she puts a lot of effort into that. Actually, this year I met the family that hosted the house, and they gave their house up, and they live in Southern Shores. Thanks to all the businesses that supported the military, these guys that, fought for our freedoms that we, take for granted a lot of times. Kudos to those guys. Like I said, it was an awesome ride. Probably like the one time on social media that like everybody makes nice comments and doesn't attack one another. There was a ton of people out. Currituck on the Sound. If you live in Currituck on the Sound, they represented very strong again. Laurel Woods was on them this year, though. They had a bunch of people all throughout the whole county. It was awesome. It's a great event. The fire departments, any business that donated food, volunteers. I mean, they're all over the place. There were so many bikes. The Patriot Guard, those guys, the Jeep Club. I mean, I didn't know there was that many Jeeps that existed within 100 miles, but they were here if they had one. But like I said, Brooke Sparks, she doesn't get enough recognition for all she does, and she has some helpers as well, but she does a phenomenal job with that. I know last year we presented, or it might have been the year before because of COVID, we presented her with something. But like I said, kudos to her and any business that assists us. Parks and Rec, I had a meeting last week on the 11th. The benches for Knott's Island, if you live in Knott's Island or if you visit the Knott's Island Park, our Parks and Rec director canceled that order and reordered from another company because it was so long. They've been waiting on and waiting on and waiting on. So we're going to have benches, he said, probably in 3 to 4 weeks, and that's going with a completely different vendor. The benches at the Moyock Park in Shingle Landing, those benches will be in probably not till spring. They're still back ordered, and he said he didn't want to change those because they fit and match the design of the park. It's a really nice park if you haven't been to it. Everybody seems to rave on it. They just complain that there's not benches, which I get. You want to sit and watch your kid, not sit in the dirt or the grass.
They also match the benches that have been installed. So
yeah, and they match the other ones, correct. That and, like I said, just be kind to one another. COVID cases are going up. social distance, do all that stuff, whatever. The flu season's here. It's all in. Paul, you can get beside me. But like I said, just, be kind. Social media, I get so sick of looking when they just attack a business. I mean, like, it's hard enough to be a small business owner in a community, whether you're attacking the grocery store, you're attacking if that's all you have to do, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry for you. Like I said, because, I mean, we live in a great place. It's not perfect, but we have good people that lived here. Like I said, Chief Shortway, the guy, today I saw him cry. There's a lot of great people and there's a lot of great things. And if you don't like it here, you can always sell your house. The housing market is booming. So, like I said, that's all in that comment. Be kind. If you got nothing nice to say, don't say nothing at all. I think our parents taught me that when I was little. So, that's it for me.
Thank you, Commissioner McCord and Vice Chairman Beaumont.
The thought of how long ago Kevin was little. Anyway, so Owen, you stole most of my thunder, but and I don't even know how I stumbled across the video either. The headline is it's on YouTube and it's beachfront fire station in the Outer Banks, and the total video is like 40-something minutes. There's a couple of smaller excerpts, but it showed the trucks rolling over the sand dunes, sirens going. It was really cool. So I called Chief Shortway and congratulating them, and I said, how did this even come about? So the story was, the guy was vacationing in, somewhere south, and called up Chief Shortway and said, hey, can we do a special on your fire station? Chief said, sure, come on up. So when they were finishing, he asked Chief if he could try and find out if any of the other fire stations were interested while he was there in the neighborhood doing a special on them. Not a single fire station, fire department in the Outer Banks answered the phone when he called. Not a single one. And so we got the whole thing. But it was pretty impressive. So anyway, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. I'll just state that 2 weeks ago I did miss the meeting, and I do apologize. I wanted to wish everybody a Happy New Year. Unfortunately, I was very ill that meeting, and it lasted for about a week. Unfortunately, the newspapers, the way they put stuff in there, makes it sound like that. Some commissioners choose which meetings to attend and what not to attend. So I would just like to clarify that I think running a high fever and being stuck in bed for a week should allow a board member to miss a meeting, I would hope. So unfortunately, I was that sick last meeting. So again, I do apologize for not being here. But I'm here today, so Happy New Year to everyone, and I look forward to making as many meetings as possible, everyone that I can. And then just everybody be safe out there. We're expecting some bad weather this weekend. I'm sure the fire departments will be busy, first responders. Just be safe out there. We're still having a lot of fires, so again, support your fire departments.
2 last week.
What's that? Yes. So with that, that's all I have to say. I'll pass it on to Commissioner White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I basically was in the same boat you were in, down for the count. I'm still sounding a little froggy, so I apologize if I'm a little froggy this evening. Last meeting, I planned on talking about civic associations. As Corolla has a civic association, and we're currently at odds with them on a couple things. If you may have read in the papers that we've had some lawsuits against us, and we recently prevailed in those. But they've accomplished quite a few good things, and we constantly see people in here, or as Kevin likes to talk about on Facebook, talking about projects after they've been passed by us. And to those of you that are in Moyock or the northern end of the county that want to see a change or something happen, I would suggest to you that you do the same thing. Create a civic association to have a united voice, to come in front of us. You can be the opposition to a project that comes forward. If you have a good enough group, you can put together enough numbers to bring in an attorney to oppose, or experts to come in to offer a counterpoint to the projects that come before us. On these special use permits, we're often left without anyone except for the applicant in the room and there's no voice of the resident. We are not allowed to have a personal opinion. We have to consider evidence in that case, as we said, as a quasi-judicial board at that time. Small area plans, we have those in place. They may need to be adjusted from time to time. Having a good civic association or a group of people that want to see something different for their area of the county can be pivotal and really help change the way the things look and feel in an area of the county for a positive effect. So if there's anyone out there that feels like doing that and putting that together, I would highly suggest that you do that and try and move forward with that. Recently I had a tourism advisory board meeting, and on a positive note, looking at 22 for Currituck County, the traffic's going to be worse on the bypass if you live on the mainland on the weekends. Starting earlier this year, our occupancy numbers are up on a whole about 6%. Starting earlier this year, and right in the middle of May, we see a pretty good jump over last year going into the season. And in years past, we didn't see that happen until about mid-June when the kids were all out of school and all the graduations were done and everybody showed up. Well, obviously the world has changed a little bit, and that has created basically going to be a windfall for us as far as visitor occupancy goes. And so this year we've seen about a 6% jump, and starting in late May and early June, we're already up to about 80% occupancy versus 60%, less than 60% last year at the same time. Last year was obviously one of the best years we've ever had. And on volume, prepaid vacation rentals, right now we're up $18 million in revenue for the same time last year on prepaid vacation rentals. And again, we're seeing that trend of people coming here much earlier in the year and staying much later into the fall. So the bookings are showing that. We have a software that we can see that data through the rental companies and kind of know what those numbers are going to be. And all that goes back to quite a few years back when we started the Tourism Advisory Board. Commissioner Etheridge was the commissioner on that board at the time. I actually was just Joe Citizen on that board at the time, and we have been pushing for quite some time to grow the fall season here. Typically the summer was literally holiday to holiday, and that was it. And so those efforts have paid off, and we're seeing that, which, other than the headache on Saturday and Sunday for 3 or 4 months out of the year, is great for us for our tax base, because the more money that's spent in Corolla, the more value in the homes that are there, the more money that comes back to the mainland and can be used for other things here, like our school systems, parks, wherever we need tax revenue, general tax revenue to go. So to those of you that have to put up with that on the mainland, sorry, but it's a good thing overall for our county. And that's it for me this evening, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner White. Commissioner Etheridge.
Thank you. On Thursday, I attended an appreciation dinner for Currituck kids, and I'd like to give a big thank you to all the folks involved in this organization and for making children's lives in Currituck County a little better. They do a great job, and they're always looking for more citizen involvement. You can find them on Facebook under Currituck Kids. And our chairman, Mike Payment, also serves on the board of directors, so I'd like to say thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
The other day, a citizen was talking to me and said it looked like a helicopter had flown over Currituck County and dropped housing seeds everywhere. Even if this was a little funny to me, it was really a little sad, too. But what is sad is that we did not need to have this happen. And all of you Facebook warriors and citizens, Commissioner Jarvis and myself did not violate our oath of office or vote illegally at the last meeting or any other meeting. Like a court of law, you listen to the witnesses and you choose to believe the evidence or not. If all evidence must be believed, no one would ever be found guilty in a court of law if the defendant is wealthy enough to hire the best. As a board, we have lots of tools to control, not stop, but control growth. And the best tool the commissioners have is not to approve every rezoning request coming before us. Citizens are calling me. They're upset. They're upset about more and more development, about school overcrowding, road issues, county services, and the list goes on and on. Well, folks, it doesn't matter how angry you get unless you get involved. So like we've always said, you need to be involved. So be that spark and become involved in your county. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Edwards. And now, Ms. Jarvis.
Okay. Exactly 3 years ago today, I was given the incredible opportunity to join this board. And for that, I am eternally grateful. While many issues have been difficult and contentious and often unpleasant, so much of what I've experienced in the last 3 years has been positive and wonderful. I take this job seriously. I take every vote seriously, sometimes maybe too seriously. So even an implication that I'm not making decisions legally is upsetting to me and ridiculous just because I weigh evidence differently. So I will pledge this from here on. I promise to continue to listen. I promise to continue to weigh evidence fairly and deliberately, and then to fairly make a decision. I can promise you that. And I want to also say one of the opportunities that this board has afforded me is to sit on the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council. And I want to thank them for the work that they do, for all of the tools that are at their grasp to help our wayward and troubled youth. I thank them. I thank all of the members for how seriously they take this to get our kids back on track. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jarvis.
Mr. Chairman, can I add one quick thing with
Yes, sir, real
Commissioner
quick.
White said?
Okay.
I was at the Currituck Club today. I was in Corolla for the Sheriff's Office, and I was talking to the Director of Golf, JT over there, and he was telling me 7 weeks the bridge was shut down as far as to get to Corolla. They had their best year ever of rounds of golf. So you're talking about like dollars and cents, and I know we have 6 golf courses. We used to have 7. We have 6 golf courses in Currituck County. Of the 6 golf courses, every one of them was up in rounds. So, I mean, that just showed, and golf was, a few years ago, was a dying sport.
Gosh,
So
hold on just a
COVID,
little
I think, kind of brought people out of the woodwork starting playing golf again. But it was interesting that he was telling me about how many rounds they were having, and they were having just literally having to turn people away. So.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next item is our county manager / county attorney report.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, due to COVID-related staff shortages, the animal shelter today began going to an appointment-only schedule temporarily to be reevaluated next Friday, January 28th, and hope to get their doors regularly back open. But they're just too short-handed right now to be able to take care of all the animals and to deal with all the other activities that usually occur when they're able to maintain regular operating hours. Secondly, just to remind the board that you do have a retreat next Thursday and Friday, January 27th and 28th at the Public Safety Center. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
And it's open to the public.
Yes, it is open to the public.
Yes, it is.
And it's open to the public. If you come in, you're going to have to use the main entrance. Are we going to be located upstairs by the emergency management
We're going to be upstairs in the
EOC building?
EOC area. Yes.
Okay. So if you come in if you want to come to the, you go right in the main doors, COA's to the left, most county stuff's to the right, go up the big stairs, and the EOC building's up there. Like I said, you can't miss it. So it's a big building.
It's a room as big as this.
What's that?
Yeah, and if somebody wants to attend, a room is huge. I mean, you can open different dividers. I mean, it's like almost like a basketball court.
It'll be spaced out. There's plenty of spacing in there.
If somebody
Yes,
wants
our
to
plan
attend.
right now is probably to utilize about 1/3 of it, which is plenty of room, and we'll be able to space things out so people can be comfortable.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McCree. The next item is administrative reports, and first item is our Currituck County Auditors report with Carr, Riggs, and Ingram, and I'll ask them if they come. I guess Sandra's going to start off with that.
Good afternoon. I'm Sandra Hill, the Finance Director, and Madonna Stafford with Carr, Riggs, and Ingram is here today to present the audit report for you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I hope you're all doing well tonight. I'm Madonna Stafford with Carr, Riggs & Ingram. I've been working on the county's audit for almost 15 years now, so I would like to thank you again just for letting me be here with you tonight to go over the results of the county's June 30th, 2021 audit. First of all, I'd like to just kind of start off by recapping what we were engaged to do and what our objectives with that were. First, and probably most noteworthy, was we were engaged to perform a financial audit and issue an opinion on the financial statements of the county as a whole. We conducted our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards as well as government auditing standards. And we were able to issue an unmodified opinion on the financial statements as of June 30th, 2021. So bottom line, this means it was a clean opinion and we found nothing materially wrong. Our opinion letter is found on pages 15 through 17 of your audit report for reference. I would like to point out that you'll find an emphasis of matter paragraph within the opinion letter, and that is that's explaining a small restatement related to the fiduciary fund reclassification of funds. The total restatement on that was $36,499. We also had a restatement at the fund level for the Corova Beach Service District. That's now being presented as a separate special revenue fund. In the previous years, that has been combined with the TDA, but now meets the requirements to be shown separately. And there was no adjustment with that. It was just moving fund balance from one fund to another. Our second objective was to perform a single audit over all major federal programs for the year and express an opinion on whether the county complied with all of the direct and material compliance requirements related to those grants. Fiscal year 21, we had two major programs. They were the Medical Assistance Program and the Coronavirus Relief Fund. Medical Assistance Program is probably one of the largest in the country. We've been auditing that every year for a very long time. It's got a lot of oversight and well monitored, so typically we don't see any issues there. The Coronavirus Relief Fund was a brand new funding source set up in response to the pandemic, so we felt like that had a little bit higher risk associated with it just by being a new program. But I am pleased to say that we had an unmodified opinion on compliance over both major federal programs for the year. Basically, that means we didn't find any compliance issues, we didn't find any deficiencies, and no question costs to report on these programs. The report will be found on pages 208 and 209 of your audit report for reference. And our third objective was to perform a single audit over major state programs and express an opinion on whether the county complied in all material respects with the direct and material compliance requirements related to those programs. And in fiscal year 21, we had two major state programs. They were the Stream Debris Removal Program and the State Aid to Airport programs. Both of these are long-standing programs as well that we've audited many times over the years and are very familiar with. We did issue an unmodified opinion on compliance over these major state programs as well. And similar to the federal report, this means that we found no compliance issues, no deficiencies, and no question costs to report on these programs. The report will be found in your audit report on pages 210 and 211. Moving on, I will take just a few minutes and point out a few of your financial highlights to kind of recap the year for you. The net position for the county total for both governmental and business type activities increased approximately $25 million this year. and you ended the year net position total at $236,140,630. This was approximately $14.5 million better than the 2020 fiscal year. These current increases are primarily due to increases in your governmental revenues. It was truly a record-breaking year for the revenues.
Can you say that one more time?
Which part?
You said it was a record-breaking year?
It was,
Okay.
for revenues.
Thanks. I want that on record.
It really was. Your primary increases was property taxes, right around $1 million. Sales tax and state shared revenues was up about $3.8 million. Land transfer tax was increased about $6.5 million. Occupancy tax was up about another $4.3 million. And then another $800,000 in operating and capital grants. So overall, you can see there was a lot of new revenue coming in last year.
Good.
The operating expenses increased about.
I think we had a question.
Oh,
One question, excuse me. The additional property tax was before the new tax rate and every reevaluation took place, correct?
that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Your government operating expenses also increased about $4 million, so there was some offset to that new revenue. But overall, you can see you ended the year very well off. And you'll see these trends on Exhibit 2, page 32 and 33 of your audit report. I'd also like to look next at the general fund, since that's your largest and arguably most important fund for the county. It tends to absorb a lot of costs that really there's not another funding source to take care of. The general fund balance increased approximately $9 million for the year, and that's on page 36, Exhibit 4 for reference. Fiscal year 21 had much larger gains than what we've seen in previous years. Once again, it was just a record-breaking year with all of this new revenue. Once again, I mean, your biggest increases there were your property tax, sales tax, state shared revenues. Permits and fees were also increased quite a bit this year. Building permits alone, I think, were around an $850,000 increase. The operating expenditures were consistent between years, so those were holding steady in the general fund. Also important, while we're looking at the general fund, to look at your unassigned fund balance. And this is really the amount of fund balance in the general fund that's not obligated in any other way. The LGC closely monitors the ratio of your unassigned fund balance as a percentage of total expenditures. And this is what they consider to be a key performance indicator, and they track it and watch the trends year over year, and they really like to see that increasing. So for your unassigned fund balance at the end of the year was $20,953,942. And that amount represented 39.84% of your general fund expenditures. For comparison, your unassigned fund balance in the general fund last year was just over $11 million. And it was 21.4% of expenditures last year. So for fiscal year 21, that was about a $9.8 million increase, and the ratio increased about 18% as well. Both very positive indicators of financial health within the county. The LGC recommends this minimum to be 20%, so as you can see, at the 39.84%, the county is well within the LGC's recommendations. Just for comparison, the average ratio for all counties across the state last year was 39%, so Currituck is right on target with the average in the state. So another financial trend there that looks really good. Moving on, we'll look at the business type activities for just a few minutes. And this is on Exhibit 8, page 43. The overall business type activities for the year increased approximately $2,023,000. In the prior year, business type activities reported net income of $5.3 million. But a good portion of this, I think it was about 2.6 million, was a transfer from the transfer tax capital fund and really wasn't related to the operating. So that does skew that prior year number just a little bit. Fiscal year 21, your total revenues increased about $980,000 across all of your business type activities. And your expenses remain consistent between years. There was very little shift there. One other primary change between years was a $1 million loss on the transfer of fixed assets in fiscal year 21 into the governmental activities. And I believe that was for a maintenance shop that's now been converted into using for governmental use instead of just proprietary.
Where's that at?
What was that?
What was that again?
Is the Public Works garage that they're using in Corolla that was part of the water plant?
Behind Pine Island?
From a budgetary standpoint, we didn't find any violations of state statutes and no over expenditures on the budget. So I feel like the county's doing a good job monitoring the budget and making sure that we're getting amendments adopted timely. Both positive indicators there. Looking at your tax levy and collection rates for fiscal year 21. Overall, the levy increased $900,000, and this was just due to increased valuation, had nothing to do with a rate increase. And your tax collection rate for the year was 99.25% for fiscal year 21. This was an increase of 0.82% over the prior year, and absolutely a fantastic rate to maintain there. One change by the LGC that we had this year was to add a performance indicator worksheet, and we had to submit that with the audit. And really, that just helps to point out areas of weakness and concerns that the LGC will monitor throughout the year. I'm happy to say that all of the county's ratios were well above what the LGC expects for a minimum. We only had one performance indicator that was on the worksheet, and that was that the audit wasn't submitted before December 1st this year. Unfortunately, like so many other places, our office has had some staffing issues related to COVID, and we've had some people out, so we had to push our field work start date back this year about 2 weeks, which pushed back the release date on the audit. So I do apologize for that, but we did our very best to try to get it done as quickly as we could. Looking ahead to fiscal year 22 audit changes, I just want to point out one implementation standard that will happen. We're going to be implementing GASB Statement 87 on leases. It will be a significant change in the presentation, and you'll probably see a restatement there, but we don't have numbers yet. But I know that the finance department is looking at the leases, gathering the information, and working through those initial calculations, so I feel like we'll be in good shape for implementation come June 30th. We didn't have any other items or deficiencies to note. Everything seems to have run really smooth this year. I think, once again, it was just a record-breaking year. I know as we head into our budget season and that sort of thing, I don't know where the revenues are tracking this year, but it's certainly time to be mindful of where we are on that, because fiscal year 21 was just such a great year. I don't know if that will continue, but something to be monitored. I'd just like to thank Sandra Hill, the Finance Department, and Department of Social Services. They've always been very helpful, very responsive to our requests, and do a great job keeping things on track. So we are much appreciative of that. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to take those at this time. Or if there's anything that I didn't touch on within the audit report that you guys would like to talk about, we can certainly circle back to.
Board have any questions?
I just want to thank her and thank the county staff for the great job that they do to make those numbers look the way they look. So,
Yeah, no, it's.
I mean, like I said, it's impressive. I mean, we run a good ship. Sandra does a great job, and like you said, record-breaking year.
Oh, yeah.
Keeps us from spending all the money.
One number that impresses me is the tax collection rate.
Oh, it's
Went
crazy.
up.
99%.
99.
Yep.
Former Commissioner O'Neill and myself, when we came on the board, what was it, Paul, 91? 94 or something. Yeah.
I was in the tax office the other day. I was assisting with civil process, and one of the ladies was in there, and I'm not going to say the business's name, but they're not in our county. But she was on the phone, and she collected a huge debt for the county from somebody that they'd owed for a while. And like I said, that's why our number's so.
Good.
So
Oh, yeah, it's definitely an impressive number.
Tracy and his staff, they do a good job.
Yeah, we see that. Very impressive.
Any questions or comments or anything? If not, then thank you very much for the report. We appreciate all your work, and
Okay.
it sounds like we did a good job this year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we need to approve the acceptance of the audit report?
I don't think that's necessary.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right. The next item is public hearings. The first item is item A, which is PB 21-24, W&J Development LLC request a text amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance to modify the allowable uses and maximum building size in the MXR Mixed Residential Zoning District. And before I get started on that, let me just make a statement to this board. Per GS 160D-109, I'm going to read this. Governing board members shall not vote on any zoning amendment if the landowner of the property subject to a rezoning petition or the applicant of a text amendment is a person with whom the member has a close familiar business or other associational relationship. I am going to ask this board, because I do have a business relationship with this firm. I do a lot of commercial business for them. And based on this statute, it says I shall not vote on this, so I'm going to believe the attorney's agreement on that. I'm going to ask that I be recused from this portion.
It would be appropriate for the board to entertain a motion to excuse the chairman from
I'll make the motion.
participating in this matter.
Have a
To
motion and a
recuse.
second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? If that, I'm going to turn it over to the vice chairman. Get any else?
Glad I had the last meeting to warm up.
All right, thank you, Vice Chairman. This is the first planning item you will hear this evening. It is PB 21-24 W&J Development, and this is a request for a text amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance to modify the allowable uses and maximum building sizes in the MXR Mixed Residential Zoning District. And what this text amendment is actually being considered in conjunction with a development proposal, but this is only the text amendment you are reviewing tonight. So keep that in mind because it does relate to, and I believe the applicant may show you the development proposal when they present, but this item here is just the text amendment you are considering.
Kevin, let me hold you
Yes,
right
sir.
there. With that in consideration, this is a text amendment which affects the entire county. And so I understand the applicant, Commissioner Payment, may have a relationship with, but does that still, we're not asking to vote on a specific issue by which he would have any definable financial interest at this point in time.
That would be correct, except for the statute that the General Assembly adopted within the last 2 years. And it speaks to a zoning text amendment, the chairman read, relates to a zoning text amendment with which the board member has a business relationship.
Okay.
And so the chairman has identified a business relationship with the applicant.
All right, thank you.
Soldier on.
What's that?
Well, soldier on.
All right, thank you. First, I'd just like to give you a little background on the MXR district. It is a residential district. It used to be the RA Mixed Residential District, and then with the adoption of the new UDO in 2013, it was changed to the MXR. It does speak some to commercial uses. However, it states that they should be neighborhood serving and small scale. And our ordinance speaks to larger, more intense business uses being in the general business or limited business districts. What this change would do, you see it there, it is addressed in Note 7, and it would allow commercial buildings in the MXR to be up to 10,000 square feet in size. It would limit the sites where this is applicable to only sites that are directly adjacent to a major arterial. Currently, the ordinance, just to give you an idea, limits the building size to 2,500 square feet. That size would remain in place for sites that aren't adjacent to a major arterial. The proposed amendment also amends Article Chapter 4 of our ordinance. This gives you a good idea of what is changed. Right here, let's see if I can. This kind of bolder line there defines where the residential and business districts are separated. What this amendment would do would open up these uses of restaurants, specialty eating, grocery store, retail sales, and shopping centers and make them permitted in the MXR district with a zoning permit. And again, the asterisk is mentioned there as it's only on a major arterial. The land use plan does not provide detailed guidance on the size or type of commercial uses in residential districts. It only speaks to that they should be neighborhood serving, but there are a few policies that deal with neighborhood commercial as it does relate to the MXR district. The first is CD2, and that is commercial greater than neighborhood scale is encouraged to cluster in commercial or mixed-use centers. The second is CD5, where it says incompatible commercial encroachments within immediately adjacent existing residential areas shall be prohibited. And this policy speaks to the scale of commercial and that transition between the commercial and existing residential areas.
Kevin,
the last policy.
I'm going to get you.
Yes,
well,
sir.
go ahead and do that last policy, then I'm going to get you back up just a second.
All right. Last policy, CD8, speaks to mixed-use developments with compatible mixture of residential and commercial uses are encouraged.
Could you back up one slide for me, please, to the use classification chart?
Yes, sir.
So the underlying retail sales and services, they're suggesting that this be added to allow grocery store, retail sales establishments, and a shopping center.
Yes, sir. They are requesting that these uses be added to the MXR district.
What is what do we consider like a Dollar General, Family Dollar? What are those? Where do those fall in this?
Those are retail.
Those are retail sales establishments.
Yes.
Is that how you look at that? Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
It's just like the Dollar General right across the road here.
That's retail sales.
That's retail sales.
So that's ballpark on the size of that building.
That building, if I had to guess, 4,000 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
Do we, can you scale in my mind a 10,000 square foot building in Currituck County?
A 10,000 square foot building, if you take it outside of Currituck, a Walgreens, a CVS, those are typically about 10,000 square feet.
Okay.
Super Dollar General. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know if there is one.
Yeah, two Dollar Generals pushed next to each other.
So the Food Lion, for example, in Moyoc or Grandy or wherever, are those 10,000 square
Oh, no,
feet?
those are significantly larger.
They're a
Yeah,
lot
those are probably
bigger.
25,000
Yeah.
square feet would
Okay.
be my guess.
That's why I needed it to be scaled for me.
Yes.
Okay.
Judicial center is 40,000 square feet.
Okay.
Cut it in four.
All right. All right. Well, that kind of helps, but. So a
Yeah,
traditional, like a standalone CVS would be 10,000.
Correct.
Okay.
So when it does speak to a grocery store, it wouldn't be a typical Food Lion as we have in this county exceeds the 10,000 square feet. It would be more of a smaller scale. If you've ever been in a Trader Joe's, those are typically around 10 to 12,000.
They're bigger than that. No, the little small, they're mini ones. They're
Neighborhood Walmarts, those would still exceed 10,000.
yeah, they're
Oh, yeah, they're significant.
So the super Walmart. That, yeah. So it is that smaller scale, more specialty grocery store that falls in that smaller 10,000.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
In that same light, is there any condition that there be an internal circulation into the, like, parking lot from the community? So they don't
Mike.
go out on the
Mike.
road?
Mike,
Turn your mic
get your
on.
mic. I got it.
No, there is not. As it's written, there's no requirement as it's posed to have that internal circulation.
Would that not be a good idea to have that?
Well, of course, yeah. Anytime there's internal circulation, the development is working more as a development as a whole rather than, piecemeal. So anything you can do to make it more seamless would be definitely encouraged.
So what's the benefit of this text amendment versus just a traditional rezoning to this area as GB? Would that not be an option here, that they could rezone an area GB?
Well, correct. The GB and the limited business districts both can accommodate these uses that they're posing into the mixed residential district.
So what's the advantage of this text amendment over doing just that?
Well, it's kind of, again, we're not looking at the project that this text amendment is addressing. The advantage would be to open up the uses that could go into a mixed-use, mixed residential development, where you could have one development under one zoning. It would open up the uses.
And jump all over this, you two. 2,500 feet is not a very big. Part of the challenges with MXR in the past has been, okay, what do we do with the commercial piece up front? And when they're limited to a 2,500 square foot building, that's awfully restrictive. And, you're kind of limited to maybe a Starbucks or something along those lines. So it's kind of.
Wasn't that the spirit in which MXR was written, to have those kind of community hangout businesses? I'm asking.
I would say yes.
Okay.
The challenge has been
It's not bad
nobody's doing it, right? So you've got a section of property out front that it's hard to get businesses to come in, depending on, to develop that. I believe.
Right.
My
The
impression.
district purpose speaks to that, where the district is a mix of residential uses. It's a neighborhood serving commercial. Commercial is not a primary use. It's an accessory use within the district. So 2,500 square feet is a small space, but the MXR was never intended to be a commercial use or a commercial district.
And this would be for the entire county, and so if I remember correctly, the purpose of us trying to clean up the corridor was to prevent houses, a big business houses, they wanted it all kind of clustered together, if I remember correctly.
Yes, that's what our small area plans speak to, and is that clustering of businesses where the infrastructure would support them.
So where this proposed project is, would this type of project make sense in Granny, for instance, going forward? Is there a call or a need or a reason or anything that a project like this should go into certain areas of the county? I guess, is there a better way to accomplish this?
Yes, sir. And that's where, when we're talking about the text amendment versus the project, I don't want this to be a commentary on the proposal.
Right.
because Grandy is a place that could definitely support that type of proposal, that increased density. Grandy is actually an appropriate place where that project could be entertained. There's other ways that staff feels that may be able to be addressed, but, this isn't a commentary on that project itself or the value of it.
Speaking of size, what the Royal Farms, and I know
That was 5.
Grandy, was it 5 or?
That was 5.
I thought it was bigger than that, okay.
Yep.
Because I was in one the other day, so that's what I was trying to compare.
So if we make this change, how would existing communities be impacted? Would the homeowners association, for example, have a say? Would they have an input? I mean, how would making this change now affect neighborhoods, existing neighborhoods?
Well, it would allow a more intense commercial development adjacent to them in a residential district. If there was MXR that was on a major arterial, then it would just allow for larger commercial. I mean,
but currently they can have, if they have the space, and it's an MXR, they could put 4 2,500 square foot buildings into, if they have the room to do it, right? I mean,
Correct,
it's probably
yeah.
very rare that that's actually the case, but that is a possibility. They could accomplish the same goal with 4 buildings.
yes, correct. There's no limit on the number of buildings currently in the ordinance or proposed in this amendment.
And so in an existing MXR, they're going to have, these would become zoning permits, so they wouldn't necessarily, unless they were under a use permit, would they have to come back in to amend a use permit to allow for a change? Like if they, I guess the floor comes to mind that he had showed 3 2,500 square foot buildings. What in that case would play that out for me? What happens in the future if he wants to make a change?
Right. What would trigger the use permit in the MXR would be a multi-family development. If this amendment passed, they could go into an MXR with single-family type development that doesn't require to come back to the board, and they could develop that, through the normal channels. If any kind of multi-use, as the ordinance is, would require board approval.
Now, but you brought up Flora, but I don't even think Flora would qualify because I don't know that it's on a major arterial.
It could. He's on 168. They're currently showing the ingress and egress not on 168, but we just saw that in front of us, so you can visualize that
Right,
project,
okay.
right? So if he wanted to change the ingress and egress to 168 for the commercial component of that MXR, that doesn't go with his use permit at the time, but so if you have I'm just trying to game it out for an existing project that's out there that has some vacant land sitting there that has proposed, commercial on the front. They haven't done anything with it. The neighborhood's filled up, right? So the neighborhood's used to that land being there, and maybe somebody actually knew that it was supposed to have a 2,500 square foot building, which is what I think where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
And now all of a sudden, there's a Walgreens coming out front, which would probably be a great thing for most people. But so that's why I was asking what happens. Can they just come in and just say we're going to do 10,000 square feet, or they have to come?
What can they do by right?
Right.
And what do they need to come back in and apply?
I will preface that. Most of the vacant land there, it would first come in with a conditional rezoning to MXR. Now, once that's rezoned to MXR, the multifamily is the use in the MXR that triggers a use permit on top of that rezoning.
Just take, for example, like what we were talking about, the property in Grandy where the solar farm is located. He put that on the market. It's 3 acres, I believe. And I know there were some pharmacies contacted about that. I mean, what would somebody, would that text amendment affect, or this text amendment affect that far as like this?
It's not MXR.
It's not MXR.
They'd have to rezone it.
They'd have to rezone. It's zoned commercial, so what's the maximum size building they could put on that?
In commercial, if it's outside of a full service area, Anything over 5,000 square feet requires a special use
Special use,
permit.
that's what-
If it's in a full-service area and you're in the general business commercial, then there's no limit.
Okay,
Which
thanks.
I think what you got there, right? That's full service GB in that place, in that case.
Yeah.
Well, going back to Selena's question about rezoning it to general business, there'd be concern about spot zoning, wouldn't it? If there was no adjoining GB zone to attach to.
Pardon, I missed the first part.
If you just went in and rezoned one little spot for the commercial area
Right.
inside MXR, be concerned about spot zoning, wouldn't it?
Yes, we would prefer if it's one development, we would prefer the whole thing be zoned one zoning, MXR. In a lot of cases, there are, the GB is adjacent to the highway, and what really would be rezoned for residential is behind that. But if you're talking one development project, it's usually best practice to have it one zoning. I have one more slide if you want to finish up. It could answer a couple.
You on that one?
Right.
So just to give you the background, staff does recommend denial of this text amendment. The planning board considered it and recommended approval with a 5-1 vote. Again, as I said, this isn't a commentary at all on the project that accompanied the text amendment. Staff just thinks there's other ways that it could be accomplished, ways such as, if you are talking about increasing the commercial use in the MXR district, addressing the purpose of the MXR, and making the MXR district a true mixed use, addressing, with commercial, office, residential, a true mixed use district, creating a new district, or we do have a existing district, it's the CC district, community center, rezoning to that. With that rezoning, it would take a small area plan, which we would have to do. With that being said, Grandy is, probably a very good candidate for a small area plan in the future, given development potential. So with that, I can take any questions and conversation before the applicant.
What was the last, was there a small area plan? There was a small area plan done in Granby, wasn't it?
Not for Granny. We just did the pedestrian plan through there with the state.
There wasn't, and there are some, you might have
Early
seen some
2000s.
renderings of it. In our new land use plan, there are some renderings of what Grandy
Could look like.
Okay.
could look like, and those have gone around, so you've probably seen those.
Thank you.
So just to clarify, you're saying there's a potential to move MXR over to a looking at it more as a commercial zoning than residential? Because right now it's really a residential zoning with a commercial component, right?
Correct.
Or residential use with a commercial component. And so you're saying there is a potential to move that over to like a commercial serving, I guess,
Right.
or true, but it would move out of true residential, right?
Right, where it would be more of a true mixed-use development. There's Newtown and Williamsburg, where it has that large commercial component with a bunch of different residential components. Then you're talking, it's not a residential district, it's a, true mix of uses, commercial, residential, office. So if you're upping the commercial intensity, where is it more appropriate? And, at that point, it would be a true mixed use, in staff's opinion.
Okay.
So I don't have a question for Kevin, but I'd love to hear Larry's 2 cents on value added, non-value added. Is this needed? Does this have greater appeal, what from an economic development standpoint, what obstacles have businesses had? Does this help? Whatever. And thank you for coming up to see us.
My pleasure. Well, I think it definitely would have a benefit in the Grandy area. And as Kevin alluded to, I think a true mixed use would probably be a better use, because then you can truly mix residential and commercial, where you may have townhouses or apartments, and then you have a shopping center or some mixed use, true mixed use. And of course, on the road would be where the commercial aspect would be, and then the neighborhood would be behind there. So I think that would make more sense from that standpoint. And certainly Grandy is a great location in the county, kind of midway for anybody that's working in Virginia or Elizabeth City or down towards the beach, or obviously within the county. So getting more rooftops is always a good thing, because that, the old adage, retail follows rooftops kind of thing. And eventually, if they're looking at a small area plan for Grandy, definitely would be a good area, a good candidate, because we already have a grocery store. Some other stores are there. The Royal Farms.
We have a Royal Farm.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not like you have to create all that. It's already there. So I think it would add to the area.
Okay. Any questions for? Right. Thank you from staff. Would the applicant please step forward? Evening.
Chairman.
Gosh, it's Mark.
Well, who are you and what have you done with Mark Bissell?
Colonel Sanders. Right. State your name and your address for the record, please.
Well, I'm still Mark Bissell, and 3512 North Currituck Highway in Kitty Hawk. I was in COVID isolation week before last, and there was no reason to shave, so I decided to maybe keep it going for a while.
All right.
Kind of liked it.
A little late on No Shave November.
Right.
So I think we have some PowerPoint slides. And we're proposing some very minor amendments, we think, to chapters 3 and 4 regarding commercial uses in the MXR zoning district. Just to give you an idea of what you can do now, the current MXR allows a pharmacy presently in MXR, but it only allows a 2,500 square foot pharmacy, and that is way smaller than any pharmacy that I am aware of would want to be in. It allows a bank, again, but only 2,500 square feet, a 2,500 square foot doctor's office. It does allow eating establishments without a special use permit, but only specialty eating. So under the current rules, you could walk from your residence to a bakery within the development, or you could go get an ice cream, but you couldn't go get a full meal. We have purposely made this amendment as narrow as possible. We have limited it to the major arterials, and from a practical standpoint, it's really limited to 158 and 168. We're adding only 4 uses to the current list of permitted uses in MXR, which are the restaurant, a small grocery store, and just to give you an idea on the size, the Moyoc food line is 40,000 square feet with a 10,000 square foot expansion room set aside. So about a quarter of the size of, and that's a smaller food line really, about a quarter of the size of a smaller food line. So it would be, as was stated previously, really a specialty grocery. Retail sales. And we included shopping center because under the UDO, if you have a 5,000 square foot building with 4 tenants, you are by definition a shopping center. we would like to see medical uses going in there, but again, 2,500 square feet is just too small for much of a medical center. And pharmacies typically are looking for 10,000 square feet. We would love to see a pharmacy go in the Grandy area. So anyway, these 4 adjustments to the table open it up to not just a modest amount, but we believe an appropriate amount where the site fronts on a major highway. It does allow MXR with compatible commercial uses. It provides flexibility while you still have protection, because any project like this is going to still have to go through the conditional zoning approval process, and that's where you're going to review the site plan, you're going to review your vehicular connectivity issues and those kinds of things. We can have a continuity of architectural theme across the site. And it does provide an opportunity to do true mixed use. I know of at least 2 other sites where true mixed use could be done, both on major arterials and in full service, where they don't want to do just residential, but they need a stronger commercial component than what's offered now. And, the only alternatives is either to do a planned development where you've got to have a really large site, or you do a small area plan. And a small area plan, well, that has some application, that would be an automatic 18-month delay on this kind of a project, and it may or may not be approved after that 18-month period. We know the board is trying to promote high-quality commercial development, and there's really no zoning district other than CC that works for this right now. Again, your protection, your biggest protection of the existing neighbors and residents is through the conditional rezoning process, which this will have to go through, and any project like this will have to go through. And, conditions are typically added to address site-specific compatibility, such as buffers, appearance, and so forth, so that everybody's protected. One example that I'm thinking of is Windswept Pines. You were talking about existing MXR developments that have a commercial component. That's one that was approved with a 2,500 square foot building out front. And when we did the last amendment of that development, the developer wanted to do a second 2,500 square foot building out there. The residents were opposed, and so that did not proceed through the conditional zoning amendment process. Any existing MXR like that would have to go through a conditional zoning amendment in order to change the amount of commercial that's being proposed. And that would apply to Flora as well. So, while this plan is not part of the current request, this shows the possible application of this amendment at the site in Grandy, where you could have a very attractive walking scale residential community. You could have medical offices here. This shows potentially a 10,000 square foot pharmacy or similar building here, and then a smaller building where you could have some doctor's offices in the 5,000 square foot range, and kind of as a transition from the larger to the residential. Still walking scale, everything's connected both with vehicular traffic and pedestrian traffic. So you've got good connectivity. You could do an attractive development. You could do commercial buildings that are architecturally compatible with the residential, again connected with walkways, with a typical townhome development that we're looking at for that site. And so, in summary, these changes are minor in scope, but we think meet a community need. They're only going to apply in appropriate places along major arterials. There are benefits to the community. You still have your zoning protections. And, keep in mind, again, that this amendment only applies to MXR zoning along the highway. So, we believe with the restrictions and the limitations that have been proposed here that this request is consistent with the UDO, that it is consistent with the purpose of the MXR zoning district, and will result in a logical and orderly development pattern. I'd be glad to answer any other questions.
Mr. Bissell, what, if this wasn't to pass tonight and we directed staff to bring back some language that would accomplish what your client would like to see, what kind of time frame are you guys looking at that you would like to see to be able to begin construction, for instance, or to move forward with that process? Or do you have any idea?
Well, there already actually is a prospective builder for the site, so we're actually just delaying the submittal of a conditional zoning with a site plan request for review until we have the text amendment tied down.
Reading over our packet, if I'm understanding it correctly, it says that there's a site. The reason you're bringing this forward is because you have property in a site that you want to develop. But it also says that some of the property is in the GB zoning district. So you're asking us to change a text amendment so the whole county will have to go instead of, so you have other options, correct?
When you say we have other options, you mean other than MXR?
Instead of us changing everything for the entire county, it would not shut your project down, correct?
I don't think we can ask for an amendment that would apply to just our property.
I know, it's for the entire county. But what I'm saying, in our packet that we have, is telling us that some of the property is in the GB district, zoning district.
That's correct.
So,
We
did
would
you not
like it to
have
all
a-
be, we would like all the property to be in MXR so that we have a unified development plan that's governed by one zoning district.
So what I'm saying is, it would not just affect your property. If we change this, it's going to affect the whole county, correct?
There are other properties in the county that could do what we're talking about, yes.
So you still have options that you could bring your project forward without us changing an ordinance that would affect the whole county, where you have residential people who might have purchased a house and now all of a sudden they're going to have a 10,000 square foot commercial building next to them because of the zoning's changed.
Well, if that's the case, then you would have the opportunity, and you probably would turn down a conditional rezoning request if it's not compatible with the adjacent property.
Since we have we have that with Tractor Supply in the neighborhood with Countryside Estates. That's a 10,000 square foot that abuts to it.
So if I'm not mistaken, what you're trying to do is change from one area from GB, the other area is?
The other area right now, I believe, is agricultural.
Ag, to go to a combination, MXR through the whole thing.
Actually, it may be single family.
Okay, I'm sorry?
It's single family, I think it is.
It's single family, it's going to go to the higher density though under MXR,
Right.
which is why this change is being requested.
Right. So we're actually downzoning.
Well,
the
that's
front
where
part
I
of
was
it.
going.
Yeah.
So the front side is actually downzoning from GB to MXR. But
Right.
But the one thing, and I understand what you're saying, Selena. You bought a house, you expected this up front, and all of a sudden something's different. The one thing there is not a existing neighborhood right now, correct?
Correct.
So, and from the discussion, it sounds like whoever wants to build the building up front, the 10,000 square foot, is like ready to go probably far sooner than the rest of the subdivision going in behind it would be. Is that correct?
Actually, I think the residential is closer to being ready to go than the commercial component.
But they would be building residential knowing what's coming up front.
Exactly.
Is it the same developer?
We don't have a.
In other words, there is no surprise coming to the people in the back
There's a
from what goes up
residential
front.
developer involved right now. There's not a commercial development involved yet at this stage.
Okay. But the point being,
It would be a surprise to people who are already there because it's going to change it for the entire county.
On an existing MXR is what you're talking about. So on an existing MXR, they would still have to come back in for a change because the existing MXR has conditions on it.
Correct. Any existing MXR is limited by.
It's not, they
Wouldn't be
can't
by
just come in and
zoning.
wholesale make a change. They
Limited
have to
by
come back before the Board of
their
Commissioners.
current zoning conditions.
They're limited to 2,500 square feet.
Right.
So if they wanted to change, they'd have to come back through the public hearing process.
They would have to have a community meeting. They would have to have a technical review committee meeting. They would, or two now. They would have to go to back to the planning board, and the planning board would make a recommendation to this board that would then hold a public hearing before any of those existing developments could be changed to increase their commercial component.
You agree with that?
Bless you.
Yes, sir. If there were conditional zoning with conditions attached, if it was straight MXR, then they could build commercial up to 10,000 without coming back. If it was conditionally zoned with conditions, it would come back. If it was straight MXR, just the ordinance would apply.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, if it's strictly MXR and this ordinance passed, they can put a 10,000, if there's no conditions on it, they can put a 10,000 square foot commercial building, correct?
Correct. If it was straight MXR on a major arterial, that's correct.
Do we know how many of those exist off the
Yeah, how many
I don't think there's
currently?
many MXRs that weren't conditioned.
There's only a handful of those,
Yeah.
and I believe they're.
Most of them have been
if not all,
conditioned because they had to go through.
But are there some? Are there some?
If there's one,
But don't they have conditions on them?
Not necessarily.
What I'm asking, are there MXRs currently that don't have condition?
Yes.
I'm hearing from my staff that there are.
Yes. Yeah, she's.
5, 1, how many? Any idea?
There's a block in the Barco area that connects 168, 158. It kind of encompasses several properties in that area.
About
The
53
Larry
acre,
Moore-
yeah, I know, yeah.
The Larimore project,
In that vicinity.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing built there, though.
Yeah, it's empty. Right, it's vacant land.
Empty.
Yeah.
The-
It's okay. So.
That was done as part of the Maple Small Area Plan.
Mm-hmm.
and Ms. Valva, where else are they?
There may be others, but that's the one that just comes to mind. That's probably one of the larger ones.
Okay.
The others.
I think there's.
I don't think there's
Can-
another one.
It'd be interesting to know how many there are.
Can we take like a
Right.
5-minute recess and see if we can find it?
You can consider that. I think that number, I'd like to know what the significance of the impact would be.
I would too.
But there's none to the knowledge that are
Complete.
complete. But I'd like to know the number two. Can we do a recess?
Any other questions for Mr. Bissell? Okay, I'd like to move that we take a 5 to 10 minute, we'll say 10-minute break and allow staff time to
Yeah, we can.
do that research, please.
Working on it now.
All right, great.
I'd like to reconvene tonight's Board of Commissioners meeting. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
I needed that.
All right, so thank you, Mr. Bissell, and Kevin, if you'd be so kind as to brief us on the number of MXRs that are on a major arterial who could potentially be affected, who are under no conditions at this time.
There are 7 MXR properties along major arterials. 3 of them are unconditioned. The biggest one being in Barco. There is a piece of property south of the Point Golf Course and one in Jarvisburg. The Countryside Estates and Baxter Station are conditional MXR, but they kept the GB zoning along the arterial. And then Windswept Pines and Flora are conditional MXR.
Okay.
And the 2 you mentioned down the county, are those developed currently, or
No.
are they?
No, sir.
Okay.
There's no development on all 3.
Okay.
Correct. Correct.
The one in, the area in Barco is probably more than 20 properties. There are single-family dwellings on some of those lots. So
Okay.
they are developed. Some of them have structures on them, but could be redeveloped.
Okay.
How many different, is it 4 different landowners or more than that on that?
On which one? The one in Barco?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I don't know the number of different landowners. I would say probably
More than
4.
Whatever happened to NCDOT? Just asking. Paul O'Neill did away with that when he was a commissioner. Okay, thank you, staff. And with that, I'm looking at the folks signed up to speak. I think Mr. Hines spoke already, and he was on the wrong list, which leaves us to Paul O'Neill. If you'd be so kind as to step forward, please. State your name and address for the record, and let us have it.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. My name is Paul O'Neill. I live at 893 Water Lily Road, Coinjock, North Carolina. If you could put the map back up that shows the proposed use of the text amendment, that would be great. So I want to give you a little history with...
This one?
Yes. A little history with this policy. This property goes back when I was on the board back in 2010-11. The gentleman that purchased this property came to the county and had several meetings with the commissioners and staff about doing some type of medical facility out there. They actually had, I believe it was Alamo Hospital at the time, who had not become Centera, actually came and met with them and with the county staff, and the county staff was certainly in favor of some type of medical development out there. Well, shortly thereafter, Centera bought Alamo Hospital, and that all went to the wayside. The next iteration that these gentlemen did, and this is going back starting in 2010-11, they came forward and they wanted to put an assisted living facility on that property. And again, the staff met and looked at it, and they had drawings and renderings, and of course the commissioners supported that as well at the time, although it never did make it to us as an official project because we had the downturn that happened right along the time they were doing that. So they set on the property again. So then they were able to get a McDonald's out front. And talking about a 2,500 square foot building, the McDonald's is 5,000 square foot for a fast food restaurant. That's 5,000 square foot. And they were able to secure the McDonald's out on the front property. So then they kind of laid fallow there for a while. Then they came back after I got off the board and came back and met with staff and were going to propose some apartments. I believe it was 144 apartments they were going to propose there to, as they've been holding this land for going on 2 decades now, they were going to propose some apartments. Well, met with staff, and staff said, yeah, they look nice and everything, but we can't, there's no zoning that allows apartments like you want to put on there. So that was the 3rd iteration of trying to do something with this property. So the 4th iteration is what you see before you now, is the applicants read the proposed land use plan. I don't know if y'all have read it or not, but this is going back 3 years they've been working on this based on the Grandy Village concept and the proposed land use plan that they thought all along was going to be adopted, and all this would just fall in to the updated land use plan. Well, it's never been adopted. However, the document shows what they're proposing fitting exactly in with your proposed land use plan, the Grandy Village. It proposes something, zonings and townhouses and things like this, some redevelopment of Grandy, sidewalks, mixed use, all kinds of things for Grandy. And I don't know if y'all have ridden through Grandy lately and paid attention, but there's some vacant properties. It's kind of long in the tooth going along in there. And it needs some pickup. It needs something to get Grandy going again. This could also spur some redevelopment next door into Walnut Island. Right now in Currituck County, if my daughter or your children are looking to buy a house or whatever, they got a choice of a $500,000 house or a $475,000 house or another $500,000 house or a trailer. There's nothing in between. This project will bring between $275,000 and $300,000 a unit. We have teachers, we have law enforcement, and you know, we always talk about the service workers. Everybody wants service, but they don't want workers to have any place to live. Well, this is some place maybe even people with a blue-collar job could afford to live and raise a family in Currituck County. I know all the attention is always focused on Moyock. It seems like there's so much going on in Moyock that that's all y'all ever get to talk about, and nothing ever seems to happen anywhere else in the county except Moyock. And I was talking with some folks and just trying to remember the last project in Lower Currituck. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was Waterside Villages back in the early 2000s. I don't know if it was a Kilmarlock Club. I really don't know what the last project of any type in Lower Currituck was. There's nothing going on in Lower Currituck. And there's a need. You have studies within your planning department showing a need for a diversity of housing in Currituck County. Well, the apartments weren't acceptable, so that was a project of 144 apartments. So these gentlemen again came back, and now they're down to 50 townhouses. So we talk about the flow of traffic and the intermingling of the commercial with the residential. Well, there is no intermingling. There's a clear demarcation between the commercial and the residential. There will be no commingling or anything of the two different uses there. And Ms. Etheridge asked about, you already have general business. Actually, they're asking for a downzoning to make this an MXR, because with the general business, they could go out there right now and build a 40,000 square foot building and still do the MXR in the back. Or, under the current MXR rules, they could build 4 2,500 square foot buildings that never get leased, never get rented, and just they're too small for anything. And then with the traffic flow, 4 2,500 square foot buildings versus 1 10,000 square foot building, you solve the traffic concerns that y'all were talking about. Somebody was talking about that needs to be a part of what you do. But the ultimate control you have is conditional zoning. So all the MXRs that are already approved with conditional zoning, they can't change it unless you allow it. The MXRs that have nothing built on it, those folks are going to come in here and get a plan approved. Nobody is going to go build a house or anything on MXR that's already MXR without knowing what's there because there's no plans in place. It's just a zoning district. So somebody would have to come and do a complete plan before the board before any of that would happen. So in closing, you're talking about the MXR district doesn't work. I would submit that the size of the buildings is why it doesn't work. And lastly, with the discussion of doing a small area plan, that's 18 months. These guys have already been working on this for 3 years on just this iteration. And if you go back to 2010, that's 12 years these folks, 12, 13 years these folks have been trying to put something here, and finally did something they thought that was going with the land use plan that hasn't been adopted. So there's plenty of check valves where y'all can prevent anything from happening that you don't want to happen through your conditional zoning. And you have the authority to not approve something if you don't want the conditional zoning. So, and it only affects 158, 168. And so that is why we're here tonight, 18 months. We don't know what the economy is going to do after these guys have burned tens of thousands of dollars trying to get somewhere for something over the last 12 years that the county and staff could approve. And without the text amendment, the project doesn't work. So that's why they've come with the text amendment. And I do want to say staff did recommend all those things that they brought forward. They were very helpful with trying to help us to figure it out. But the 18 months is just something that you just can't, with the way things are now, and they've got somebody that's possibly ready to start the project. 18 months, who knows what's going to happen with the way things are in Washington, D.C., and I won't say any more. So I thank you for your time, and we appreciate your consideration on this text amendment.
Thank you. All right, at this time, I have no one else signed up to speak before this board. Is there anyone in the audience that failed to sign in that would like to address the board at this time? Seeing no one, I am closing this to public comment and open it up to the board for discussion. Okay. In the absence of discussion, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I have one question. So there's, of the 7 MXRs, this is one that has no conditions on the zoning. This one, Barco, Jarvisburg, and Palace Point, correct?
Well, this one doesn't.
Well, this one doesn't. Yeah, this one's not MXR.
Anything. So you basically have 3 unconditioned, or undeveloped, that have the potential to be affected.
That's where I was trying to go with that, sorry.
All right, hearing no further discussion, I open it to the board for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to move to approve PB 21-24 because the request is consistent with the land use plan. And do I need to insert uses in this one, or supporting policy?
They're on page
Yes.
6.
Thank you. Apologize. Working on it. Policy CD2, CD5, and CD8. Mr. Attorney, if these were only in a full service district, if I added a component to that, would that constitute a substantial change to allow these only to occur in full service districts rather than just anywhere in the county?
I think that would be a substantial change in that it is more limiting than what is before the board.
All right, then I'll leave that alone.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? With a motion and a second, no discussion. All in favor of passing PB 2124, if you'd say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, motion approves 5-1. We need to go get, and we'll take a brief intermission until our chairman returns.
All right, I'm going to call the meeting back to order. The next item on our public hearings is PB 21-11, Foster Forbes Mine request a special use permit for a 6.23 acre sand mine operation, extractive industry on property located at 8180 Currituck Highway, Powell's Point, Poplar Branch Township. I believe we have Kevin Kemp going to lead us off here.
Yes, sir. I believe we have to swear in as well.
Is this going to be quasi-judicial?
That's correct.
Yeah, I didn't. Okay.
Well, you get the big bucks, Kevin. Keeping us straight.
But missed that. Thank you. All right. This time, I ask anybody who's going to be doing any testimony or wishes to speak on this matter, whether you sign up for public comment or whatever, please come forward, and we'll get you sworn in. If you could find a Bible up there, and you can place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. Good. Okay. All right. Is everybody right? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you present tonight will be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, everyone. And just before we get started, I just wanted to reiterate to everyone out there that this is a quasi-judicial hearing, which means the board will be sitting as a jury, listen to testimony, and we have to take in the testimony from qualified individuals or qualified experts on this. So hearsay or opinions cannot be considered in our decisions. So I just wanted to reiterate that so everyone knows how we're sitting and how we have to vote tonight. Thank you, Mr. Kipp.
Thank you, Chairman. And with that, I will review the project quickly for you. So this is a request by HOM Development LLC and the property owner, Alan Forbes, as he mentioned, for a special use permit for a sand mine. The entire parcel is 41 acres. I will show you a site plan briefly. They plan to excavate 6.23 acres of the parcel. It is located directly off 158. The neighborhood across the street is Pinewood Acres, Azalea Acres is to the south, and Currituck Woods is to the north. This shows the zoning of the property. It's currently zoned AG, which is similar to most properties around it. There is some undeveloped general business south of it, and then across 168 is general business. It's the coastal roof and siding is what that is developed with. The property is located in a limited service area. Here is the proposed site plan for the property. The total affected area of the site with this proposal is 16.46 acres. This includes 6.23 acres of the mine, 4.43 acres of stockpiling and loading area, which is towards the front of the site, .51 acre sediment pond, which is existing in the middle of the site and currently partially under a Dominion power easement. 2 foot by 8 foot vegetated berm, 1,200 linear feet of hydration swale, and a 450 foot long entrance road. The setbacks, it maintains a 300-foot setback from residential dwellings and 100 feet setback from all the property lines. The only encroachment into the setback is from the Hall Road, where it is a 150-foot setback. That reduction in setback will be offset by providing additional screening. The screening there will be 6-foot screening that is totally opaque, and then up to 20-foot screening that is semi-opaque, and the screening must be in place before operation begins. Access will be from a new drive aisle down here. It is 188 feet from the entrance to Pinewood Acres, and 188 feet was chosen because that puts it equidistant from the house driveway to the south and the neighborhood entrance to the north. This is a little shorter than the 200 feet that we would prefer. However, it is in the middle, and NCDOT has approved that entrance. The width of the entrance is 24 feet. The first 200 feet of it will be paved. The applicant states the average trips per day is not expected to exceed 12. The reclamation plan, the mine will be retained for scenic and recreational purposes. The sediment pond will be filled. The depth of the mine, it will be average dug out to 30 to 35 feet. The dewatering plan, it will go into the sediment pond, which is surrounded by the 2-foot tall by 8-foot wide berm. Overflow will go into a hydration swale. It will eventually go into the wetlands. And this area to the top and left of the plan there is wetlands. The water will eventually go to that thick blue line there, which is the Foster Forbes ditch, which drains, what would that be? Well, to the left on this plan, to the wetlands. There are, a portion of the property is in the 100 and 500 year floodplain, but there is no activity proposed in these areas. It also contains 9.69 acres of USA COE jurisdictional wetlands. This next slide here shows the impact of the mine on surrounding properties. There are 7 properties on wells within 1,500 linear feet. These will be performance guaranteed by the applicant. The green line there shows an expanded to 2,000 linear feet of the mine. And although it's not required by the UDO, the applicant has agreed to cover the 38 properties on wells within 2,000 feet. They will have an agreement that's written and notarized to replace or fix any well problems, even beyond the $3,000 that is typical, but to full replacement. So you can see that expends that 2,000 feet, brings it to 38 properties. TRC comments. They just had some comments involving the screening to the adjacent residence on the Hall Road, which I spoke to earlier, with the 6-foot dense screening, 20-foot screening, which is also covered with a lot of existing vegetation. And then I spoke earlier about the driveway being less than 200 feet from an intersection, but as I mentioned, NCDOT has approved that location. The slide just addresses the wells within 1,500 feet and the depth of the well. Some of the older wells in the county do use a shallow water source, so there is concern over the impact that could have. Land use policies, there is one ID 8 that addresses mines directly. And it says, in what should be regulated when looking at mines, the adequacy of roads, visual impacts, noise, and dust, which they have all done with the plan. There's some other policies that address secondary impacts. WQ1 regards monitoring, protecting groundwater sources, the quality and quantity, prevention of pollution and drawdowns. WQ6, the preservation of vegetated wetlands along the edge of drainage ways. CA1, the attractiveness of major highway corridors, which this one is directly off 158. And TR6, Highway 158, 168 shall receive special attention for proper development. So these are the policies that secondarily relate to the operation and what should be considered in the conditions. So here are the standards for special use permit review, which you've seen before. There are 3 decisions you could make today. You could approve the special use permit. You could adopt the special use permit with other conditions that you feel appropriate, or you could deny the special use permit. And with that, those description of the project. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer before the expert testimony.
Is it my understanding from the agenda packet that all of the buffering has to be in place before any work can begin?
Yes, that is correct. That is correct. And the buffering, that was really the concern. There's an existing dwelling towards the middle of the site there that is a rental home, and then the dwelling to the south. So that enhanced buffering will be in place around those, screening those dwellings before operation begins.
Any other questions for Ms. Kemp at this time? If not, I'll go ahead and thank you, Ms. Kemp, and I'll ask the expert witnesses to come forward, please, for the applicant. If you could just state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Ken Elliott. I'm with Elliott Consulting at 202 Elliott Road in Islet. I have with me here tonight as expert testimony, appraisal testimony. This is Ms. Catherine Beth, and I believe she has one set of small handouts here for you. This was generated today. She'll be appearing before you speaking in a few minutes.
All right, thank you. Just got to qualify. Just got to be
We can give her ours when we're done, if you need it for record.
I'm with Elliott Consulting. Elliott Consulting serves as at specific work locations to ensure company compliance with environmental management and permit regulations, including coordination and monitoring of operations and personnel. We currently manage permitting for 45 sand mine operations in northeastern North Carolina. Tonight, we're representing HOM Development LLC of 2002 Driftwood Drive in Manio. He is applying to you for a special use permit to excavate a sand mine, a sand pit at 8180 Currituck Highway in Powell's Point. The landowner is Mr. Foster Allen Forbes of 5104 Lunar Drive in Kitty Hawk. This will be a 6.23 acre excavation on an affected acreage of 16.46 acres. The entire permit area is 41 acres. There are 9.69 acres of wetlands on the area that has been delineated, leaving 31.31 acres of uplands. This excavation will be 19.9% of the upland acreage. The depth of the mine will be 30 to 35 feet. The two major permits that have been issued already are the state mining permit was issued on November the 5th of 2021, and the dewatering permit, which is an NCGO2 permit in conjunction with the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System general permit, a federal permit. This was issued on September 14th of 2021.
Mr. Just to interrupt you really quick. Are you representing the applicant as the attorney?
No, I'm Jeff Maloney from.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
I'm sorry, Jeff Maloney from one.
Oh, okay.
Jeff Maloney from Washington Department of Court.
I thought that's who it was.
So
Okay.
I'm representing the applicant, and Mr. Elliott is our expert in sand mining permit.
Okay, gotcha. I just wanted, okay.
Thank you.
I had a hard time understanding what he was presenting.
Doesn't he need to qualify him?
I'm sorry?
Doesn't he need to qualify him as an expert?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think certainly they would want to lay the foundation to establish
His credibility as an expert witness.
expert testimony to the extent that expert testimony is required for certain findings.
Correct, yeah, normally we have the lawyers present their witnesses and their qualifications as an expert witness, and then for us to agree to that witness. And then we approve the witness as an expert, and then they can proceed with their findings. So every witness, we need to have a qualification presented to this board to accept.
It would only be certain ones. I mean, you can only consider the testimony from an expert regarding the value of property and regarding engineering issues.
Correct. So at that point, I guess we would need.
So the point of the hearing, you want to hear from Katie Bell, we just need to lay a foundation about her appraiser and intenders.
Correct.
And otherwise, Mr. Elliott's.
Well, also Mr. Elliott.
Yeah, he's an engineer.
As to any kind of public safety findings that are necessary or any transportation traffic issues to the extent he's qualified to testify on those issues.
I don't, is the board, I mean, you tell me how you want to proceed. I mean, he did lay his credentials for mining permit application specialist.
Okay, and I guess I may have missed the.
Yes, but typically, to establish his credibility, we've had an attorney that appears to quiz him as to his capabilities, his skills, et cetera, and tenure him as an expert witness for testimony.
And then the lawyer
Right.
usually presents it to this board.
Sorry, we don't play attorneys on TV either.
No, we're just trying to.
Right.
But we have been consistent.
We have
so.
seen him in action.
Mr. Maloney.
Yeah, he's an attorney.
Mr. Maloney is an attorney.
Yeah,
Yes.
so normally the attorney, again, you would come and present your expert witness with qualifications, present it to us as expert witness, and then we'd accept it. I mean, what had happened is he went right into qualifications and without getting approval if it's acceptable.
So if you'll take it from here,
Yes,
that'd be
so-
great.
Do you want to revisit
No.
this? Okay, and I tender him an expert in mining permit and engineering issues associated with mining development.
With the public health and safety, or, I mean, we've got 4 items we've got to cover here. We've got to cover the public health and safety. We have the harmony, for your property values. So probably an expert in real estate.
Which we do have that.
Okay, yeah. So I guess just what he's going to be presenting his expert witness regarding testimony. I'm sorry.
To the extent it's not been provided, you may want to have.
Establish his degree at work.
Mr. Elliott
and-
establish his educational background and his certifications, professional affiliations that he might have. You know, the drill.
Experience.
That's the board.
Yes. I was a 30-year inspector with the state of North Carolina. My responsibilities were to enforce rules and regulations and laws in regards to oil companies, and oil dealers and retail dealers in North Carolina. I was the head of the field program for that. Since that time, I have been dealing with permitting issues, or managing permits for especially sand mine operations in eastern North Carolina.
Based on that, I would tender an expert for the commissioners.
Let me just ask us one question then, which you're going to be tendering him for expert witness regarding the public health and safety portion of this?
Of the mine, yes, sir.
Of the mine, okay. Excuse me. So, all right, so you'll be providing the expert testimony for then regarding the public and safety portion of this based on your background. All right, is there any objection from the board?
No.
No objection to, okay, yes, sir, then we accept as an expert witness regarding that then. Okay. Now, if you could go into now then, I guess, I hate to ask you to start over again, but where you think you need to start regarding the public health and safety and endangerment of the mining property.
I would like to address adjacent owners first. That is always one of the biggest issues with our mining projects. Adjacent owners were first notified of this project on February the 16th of 2021 by return receipt certified mail as part of the state application with standard state notification forms and maps of the proposed project. As part of the Currituck County use permit requirements, a community meeting was scheduled for March the 8th, 2021. All landowners of parcels within 500 feet of the Foster Forbes parcel and all landowners of parcels within 1,500 feet of the proposed excavation were notified by certified mail of the community meeting. All Currituck County commissioners were notified by certified mail of the community meeting and invited to attend. The first community meeting was held on March the 8th in 2021 at the Currituck County Rural Center. The meeting was attended by 2 nearby parcel owners, Commissioner Jarvis, HOM Development, and Donna Valava with Planning. The project development was explained in detail, questions answered from attendees, and no major concerns were expressed at that time. A second community meeting was held on March 10th, 2021 by Zoom at 10 o'clock in the morning, and a third one at 4 p.m. the same day, March 10th. There were no attendees at either one of those meetings. A personal informational meeting was held with one adjacent owner unable to attend the regular community meeting. This meeting was held at Currituck County Rural Center on April the 10th, 2021. Full maps and information were provided in it, and I addressed 7 valid environmental and residential concerns that were presented. A second personal informational meeting was held with one adjacent owner unable to attend the regular community meeting. This meeting was held by telephone on April the 17th. Full maps and information were provided, and I addressed 1 valid environmental and residential concern that was presented. A summary of all these meetings were provided in your use permit application packet. I'd like to address setbacks and buffers at this time. North Carolina and Currituck County setbacks and buffers. There are 2 types of buffers. An undisturbed buffer or setback means that there are no mining activities of any kind in that buffer except for an access road to the mine site. An unexcavated buffer is a buffer where mining activities can be used, but they only can include haul roads, berms, stockpiles, or erosion sediment control measures. The state requires a minimum 50-foot undisturbed buffer between mining activity areas and wetlands or waters of the state, and a minimum 25-foot unexcavated buffer between the undisturbed buffer and the excavation edge. The Currituck County UDO requires a 100-foot undisturbed buffer to property lines, a 300-foot undisturbed buffer to residences, businesses, or churches, and a 300-foot undisturbed setback to public highways and easements. HOM Development is meeting all of those setback requirements for this project and is not requesting any reduction of setback. Erosion and sediment control on the property includes a 200-foot-long paved portion of the 450-foot-long access road to the mine site from Currituck Highway. There will be a 2-foot-tall by 8-foot-wide sand berm around the entire active area of the mine. This will be inside the unexcavated buffer. All rainfall and stormwater will drain internally to the excavation, where it will be treated for sedimentation removal before leaving the site through the sediment pond. The operator will keep a weekly log of inspections of erosion control measures. Dewatering of the excavation is necessary for the operator to achieve full permitted depth excavation safely and to allow for proper construction of the pond side slopes. The existing 0.51 acre pond on the property will be used as the sediment pond. The sediment pond will have a 2-foot-tall berm surrounding it with a half-pipe flash-forward riser water height control device on the north end of the pond to maintain maximum height in the pond of 1.5 to 2 feet below the peak of the berm. The minimum 0.51 acre surface area of the pond will allow adequate sedimentation of discharge water before it leaves the sediment pond through the overflow. Water will be pumped from the excavation into the sediment pond. Overflow water will drain through the discharge pipe from the overflow control device to a riprap protected ditch draining northward 120 feet to the fossil Forbes ditch. The discharge water will exit the fossil Forbes parcel through the fossil Forbes ditch westward into a freshwater wetland swamp draining 2 miles through swamp and marsh to the Alamo Sound. The dewatering pump will be located between the excavation and the south end of the sediment pond. To mitigate noise, the pump will be surrounded by a sand berm when it is above ground, or will be located below ground level when the pond is dewatered. The pump will be operating at an idle speed of 1,100 to 1,200 RPMs. Required monitoring for dewatering. The state is the main agency which requires this. They require quarterly sampling of the sediment pond discharge to be tested for total suspended sediments, settlable solids, and turbidity. Samples taken will be tested at a state-certified laboratory. Results will be reported quarterly to Currituck County Planning and Zoning Division. The North Carolina Department of Marine Fisheries has asked HOM Development to decrease the discharge monitoring intervals for the above specifications at the mine. HOM has agreed and discharge will be sampled and tested monthly. Results will be recorded and reported quarterly to Currituck County Planning and Zoning. Environmental protection. There will be 4 groundwater level monitoring wells installed in a band on the east side of the permit area at 355 feet, 675 feet, 742 feet, and 867 feet distances from the excavation edge. These wells are located between the excavation and the closest adjacent homes and businesses to the east. At this time, groundwater levels on the Foster Forbes property have been measured by excavated test holes to range from 4.5 feet to 10 feet below natural ground level. The monitoring wells will be installed immediately before dewatering begins to establish existing groundwater levels in them. The groundwater levels will be measured monthly during the permit. Results will be reported quarterly to NCDEQ and Currituck County Planning and Zoning. The operator will construct a hydration ditch on the west, northwest, and southwest perimeter of the active area inside the unexcavated buffer. This ditch will be 10 feet wide, 6 feet deep, and 1,200 feet long. The ditch will be kept artificially full by pumping water into it from the excavation. This ditch will serve to forcibly hydrate groundwater between the mining activity and the wetland swamp to the west. The operator has identified 7 residences or businesses within 1,500 feet of the proposed excavation with active groundwater supply wells. Per the UDO, the operator will provide a bond of $3,000 per active well to provide a funding source, and that will be used to repair or replace any groundwater well or pump within 1,500 feet of the phosphorus excavation that may be damaged by a dewatering activity at the mine. In conjunction with Currituck County Planning, the operator has identified an additional 31 residences or businesses within 2,000 feet of the proposed excavation with active groundwater supply wells. The operator voluntarily guarantees to repair or replace any groundwater well or pump within 2,000 feet of the phosphorus excavation damaged by dewatering activity at the mine. The operator has filed a signed performance guarantee with Currituck County Planning to the above effect. Noise abatement. High ambient noise levels were measured on the phosphorus property resulting from traffic on Currituck Highway. Ambient noise levels ranged from 59 to 62.5 decibels within 300 feet of the highway to 53 to 59 decibels at the location of the proposed excavation at the back of the field. Estimated noise levels from dewatering pump and equipment operation were calculated by comparison to an active mine site in Pasquotank County with the dewatering pump and equipment in operation. Noise levels were measured at distances comparable to 13 locations around the phosphorus permit area. Calculated noise levels ranged from 53 to 59 decibels at the excavation site and decreased to 48 to 53.5 decibels along Currituck Highway. Our conclusion is that noise from the dewatering pump equipment operation is expected to be less than that from existing traffic noise on Currituck Highway. Visual screening. Existing full-growth foliage and trees are in place along the north, south, and west sides of the permit area boundary. The east side along Currituck Highway currently has no screening. The operator will install a 30-foot wide strip of plantings 50 feet from the Currituck Highway right-of-way. This 387-foot long planting strip will contain 5 canopy trees, 4 understory trees, and 15 shrubs per 100 feet, per Currituck County UDO industrial streetscape requirements. The plantings will be maintained by the operator during the life of the permit. Reclamation of the mine site. The operator is currently maintaining a $25,000 bond with the state of North Carolina to guarantee correct reclamation of the mine site once excavation is completed. The process of reclamation includes the dewatering pump to be removed after the final excavation, grading of the excavation slopes. Side slopes will be graded at a 3-to-1 or flatter above normal water level, and 2-to-1 or flatter below water level. It includes grading and leveling of all affected areas in the permitted area. Stockpiles and berms will be removed. These areas will be graded and leveled. Then ground cover will be planted or installed over all affected areas. A farm path will remain around the pond. For security, there will be only the one entrance to the mine site from Currituck Highway. It's already been described. This is through the landowner's private property. The entrance will have a locking gate to prevent inadvertent public entry. State inspections. The North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, Division of Energy, Mineral, and Land Resources usually makes 1 to 2 inspections per year. These are unannounced. The hours of operation of this mine will be Monday through Saturday, sunrise to sunset, except for there will be no mine operations on Saturdays between Memorial Day and Labor Day, and there will be no mine operations on any Sunday. This leads us to the criteria that the Board of Commissioners has to consider. The first being to not endanger the public health and safety. This mine is going to be located 450 feet from Currituck Highway, intersecting at an 85.9 degree side angle. Currituck Highway has an average annual daily average of 17,000 vehicles per day. This is 708 vehicles per hour. This mine operation is expected to have a maximum average traffic count of up to 12 vehicles per day, which is 1 to 2 per hour. The closest residence is 840 feet from the mine activity and 975 feet from the dewatering pump. Noise levels will be less than that generated by traffic on Currituck Highway. Erosion and sediment control measures will be in place around all active areas of the mine. All stormwater will drain internally to the excavation. The mine dewatering discharge will be monitored and tested monthly for settleable solids, total suspended solids, and turbidity, and reported to the county. A groundwater well survey was sent to all landowners within 1,500 feet of the excavation requesting information on their wells. The operator is providing a performance guarantee to all landowners within 2,000 feet of the excavation to repair or replace groundwater wells or pumps if damaged by dewatering operations. Conformity with the land use plan. This is located in the Point Harbor Land Use Plan sub-area and is designated as limited use. Mining is permitted in a limited use area with conditions. The parcel is in an agriculturally zoned area. Mining is permitted in agricultural zoning with a use permit. The proposed mine operation is believed to be in compliance with the land use plan. County provision of public services. There will be no structures, no needs for any electrical, water, or phone services on the property. The site will have an adequate entrance for emergency vehicles if needed. We are not expected to have any impact on county public services. And lastly, to determine if this project will injure the value of adjoining properties. Foster Forest property is zoned agricultural. Mining is permitted there with a use permit. The mine activity is behind an existing screen of full growth foliage on 3 sides. The operator is adding visual screening on the 4th side per the UDO industrial requirements. The operator will comply with all setbacks and landscape buffers required by the UDO. At this time, I would like our appraiser to come up here and explain her findings.
Okay, before that, got a couple questions, if I could, real quick. You had made a statement earlier that you're not expected to be louder than the traffic on the highway.
Yes, sir.
Okay, do you know what the sound decibels of the pumps will be?
Sound decibels
Of those
the
pumps that are
highway-
going to be used?
Of the highway or?
No, of the pumps. The dewatering pumps without sound. Do you have the decibel ratings of those pumps?
Yeah,
that are used?
I listed that.
You did it, you did, okay.
59.
59, okay.
Yes, we.
Is that, I guess, is that equivalent to what the traffic noise would,
Yeah.
what the
There's a
traffic
map on
noise would
page
be?
29.
Okay.
Long story short, it looks like.
Yeah, I'm on page 29 there, I was just
And
looking
53 has the decibel
Less
level.
than that from traffic.
of the traffic, right there.
Yes, page 53.
Yeah, I was looking at that, a 49.9, okay,
Legends on the left side.
okay.
Just to put that in perspective, a normal conversation is considered to be at 60 decibels, and an average lawnmower is about 90.
Okay, and then, there's another comment in here about sunrise to sunset with no specific times. You know, that always changes. Summertime, we have longer days. Are you planning on working later days in the summertime then with the sunsets being roughly about 8, 9 o'clock? Or are you going to be a consistent time frame?
I'm sure they will probably leave before then, but I was wondering about what the UDO states.
Okay.
The other thing that's in the statement is that there will be no more than 12 trips.
Average.
It does not say average. Your statement says 12 trips per day.
So,
29.
Don't make me.
I saw it as an average over a period of time.
This is average maximum of 12 vehicles.
It's either average or a maximum. It can't be an average maximum.
During times of peak activity, there may be a few more, but then there'll be many days when there's nothing. I can have Mr. Hatchell up here to attest to that if you like.
What's the typical mining? I mean, I know we have a few different mines in the county. The mining, I mean, they're what, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m.?
sunrise to sunset.
But I mean, I know none of them are that. I mean, I'm not saying he could do that, but I'm just.
Thrasher closes usually about 4:30.
We absolutely could work with the board on those hours if you so desire.
Okay, so this says maximum daily average of 12 trucks. And then on paragraph 30, proposed maximum removal is up to 12 truckloads per day. That's also on page 29, I think. So I don't know what a maximum average is. That's, do you follow me? It's either a maximum or it's an average. You can't have a maximum average.
Okay. I would say that would be an average then, sir.
Okay. So give us what is the maximum number of trips a day?
On peak day. Let me consult 1 second.
Okay.
Let's see what their max peak.
We might have 7 trucks. 3 trips a day.
We only have 7 trucks. At the most 3 trips a day.
21. But now I got customers. So I mean, what are we trying to figure?
Well, you got your expert saying one thing here, and now that number has doubled, and it's now going farther north than that. So, trying to establish what the number is.
Over a period of time, you're going to have an average of 12 per day. But you're going to have some days which have no activity, and then other days with, if a big project is going on, then you would have more, but no more than the 21, I guess.
No, he just said he's going to be 21 plus customers to become. So I'm trying to measure what the impact of the neighborhood is.
The impact of the neighborhood?
Not the neighborhood, the impact of that area of the region.
Gosh darn it, sorry. It's the mic nag.
Turn your mic on.
Okay, your expert witness, and I'm assuming you're the owner or the operator. So your expert witness has said one thing, and you're now interjecting. I would offer in the grand sense of scheme, you're defeating his purpose as being established as an expert witness, because what he has in here, you're in fact eroding on his what he has stated as an expert.
Okay,
So
I'm not trying to erode it at all, but on average, I don't want you to ask me for separate. I mean, we've been approved by the state.
So I guess we're trying to figure out what you're really going to do. How many trips you're going to go? So give me a heavy day. Heavy day, you got a couple projects rolling. You got customers coming to get loads. We're talking 30, 40 loads maybe on a heavy day, and then the other times a year it could be.
I can do that, but I can't. I've never had a day like that.
Okay. All right. So then.
If we haul back, we haul to Currituck, we haul to Corolla.
Right.
From Currituck, I'm from Manning. If we go over here, I can't do no more than 3.
So you're going to operate this mine, or you're going to have an operator there running the excavation equipment, filling trucks. So will you be selling sand to other?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you can have other people then come in, right? And you have the potential to do 20 to 30 loads out of there on a heavy day.
It does have a potential, yes. On the average, like I say, I got 2 mines. I got another one over in Crestwell and Columbia as well. So my trucks won't be coming over here as much because it's shorter for me to go to the south from there. We're only coming back over here for the Currituck drivers that are over here really to go to Corolla and Kirchhoff. Everything else is shorter for me to come out of Columbia and go straight up south.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, is Ms. Ball still here? Have we ever tied a number of trucks per day to any mine that we've approved? I don't remember ever doing it.
I think it's just been whatever the applicant has proposed.
But I don't think we've ever placed
I guess if we need Don, let's come up to the mic. I mean, if we need to, so she can be heard and recorded. If you're asking her to answer some testimony, yeah, we probably need to get her up to a mic so she can be recorded. If that mic's live, yes, just so we can get you recorded.
The mic's hot?
Yeah, the mic's hot right there. Just, I want to make sure we're picking up Donald's comments. That's all. I just want to make sure we're picking up your comments.
Mic check.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're picking up your comments, that's all.
So, to my knowledge, I don't believe we have tied a number of trips per day with recent permits. If there was a number on a permit, it would have been whatever the applicant proposed.
Yeah, it's my memory.
I'm just trying.
Yeah,
I'm just
clarify it.
12 seems low.
They're the one. Yeah, I didn't come up with that number. Y'all came up with that number. And anyway, I just.
Okay, any other questions? If not, okay, you can, do you want to bring up your next expert witness?
Did you want that in a question and answer format for the board?
I'm sorry, what?
Or Katie Bell?
I just present who your expert witnesses,
Qualifiers.
qualifications and qualifiers, so we can
Act
accept
like
or
you're in
deny
court.
it.
Katie, can you state your name for the record, please?
Quasi.
Tell them where you live.
Catherine Bell. I go by Katie Bell. My address is 115 Garden Drive, Manio, North Carolina.
Katie, can you tell the board your education, please?
I have a major in, I'm sorry, Bachelor of Science, 4-year degree, and then I've been a real estate appraiser for for 16 years.
When were you first licensed to be an appraiser?
2004.
Could you briefly describe to the board how many appraisals you've done since 2004?
Approximately 5,000.
And you have never done specifically a mine appraisal, and you usually concentrate in residential
Correct. And I want to correct something real quick. I've been appraising since 2004. I've been certified residential since 2006.
Great. And have you conducted an investigation with regard to this application?
I have.
And the impact on neighboring residential homes and their value?
What I have done is, because I don't know, because the mine is proposed, I focused on Lower Currituck. I know that there's 14 mines in the county of Currituck that are active. I analyzed the Lower Currituck area because that's closer to where this mine is. I looked at the county GIS and designated subdivisions that were within close proximity of existing mines, and then analyzed the average sale prices, really actually picked apart a lot of different details, and provided a summary, as you all can see, regarding the fact that when you look at properties that are located within a closer proximity to mines versus properties that are located further from mines, each year from 2018 through 2021, it showed that there was no negative impact and, in fact, a positive impact. Recognizing that there's a lot of different variables regarding these properties, but when you look at the average square footage and you look at the consistency, they're fairly consistent. I probably took too long of it. Did I answer your question?
Well, I mean,
Dive right into what I did.
We would
Sorry.
tender her as an expert in this regard to the board. But
Any objections from the board? Hearing none, okay, we accept, yes.
Katie, you handed out an exhibit for the commissioners that would help aid you in your testimony, right?
Right.
Could you explain that for them, please?
Sure. So, and again, I'm only here to do an analysis based on value. This is all based on the assumption that the Foster Forbes mine has been approved, has received all the appropriate approvals in terms of safety and all of that. I'm just doing an analysis based on residential values and marketability. So I attacked it by looking at, everything per year. And I chose the year 2018 because that's the most recent year that it was the South Bayview mine that was open, which is actually also owned by HOM. And then I spent a lot of time detailing the subdivisions by mine, what were close to the different mines. And you can see there on that what the average prices. And I found it kind of interesting that Kilmarnock had the highest average sale price, and it is actually the closest subdivision to a mine. Now, you can say, well, Kilmarnock has a lot of other amenities to it. However, when you look at Kilmarnock from year to year to year, it is improved, and it's also within the closest proximity to a mine of any other subdivision, from what I could determine. And then you'll see on the second last page where the breakout of when I combined all the subdivisions and then outliers that were within closer proximity to mines versus properties that were located further, and then I gave you the yearly difference in average sale price. So what that is, it's pretty much 2018. When you look at properties that are close to mines, the average sale price was $236,500, and for properties that were outside or further from mines, the average sale price was $186,500. So I just took each one and determined the percentage. And that's that was my methodology to come to the conclusion that it's my opinion that properties that are located within a closer proximity to mines are not negatively affected versus those that are further from mines.
Does the board have any questions for Ms. Bell? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Bell.
Just one last comment, if I could, for the board. And And I know Derek's coughing back there like a lot of us are, but I think it's important. Derek has operated a mine in Lower Currituck, the Wilbur Griggs mine, for a couple of years, and then the Bayview mine with the Smith property as well. So he has lots of experience, and I don't believe, at least that I've heard, any traffic increase or residents complaining about increase of his trucks running up and down 158. Derek, have you, come up here and explain if you've fielded any complaints in that regard. Tell them a little bit of brief history about your mining in Lower Currituck. Just
like I said, we started out with Wilbur Griggs mine, started over behind the water park. When the water park was coming in, we started mining that pit there, so we had the water park, all the sand was mined out in the back before the water park was brought in, and we stayed there till we mined out 13 acres. So we mined it out in 4 years.
Really quick, can I get you to restate your name and address just for the record again, please?
Derek Hatchell, Manio, North Carolina, owner of HCI and one of the owners of HOM.
Okay, thank you.
and then tell them about Bayview Smith.
Well, we did the same thing at Bayview. We went back in, and like I said, Mr. Ellis has been with us ever since we've been mining because of the state regulations and state permits and all the paperwork and all the identifications of all the wells mining and keeping up with everything. We hire him. He stays on board with us 7 days a week and monitors everything with all the paperwork for us so we can keep it all state regulated and controlled. So that being said, that we dig, we mine, we operate, but we've not had any issues as far as traffic control. Matter of fact, we have had mine. We got a mine. I'll give you an example for your decimal. You were asking about noise. We're in East Lake. We're within the 300 foot of another house, and she complained about the noise ordinance. Okay, well, from our pit to our house, and we took a noise regulator. We were only 30 decibels. All she could hear. The road was 62 decibels. It was louder. The road was louder than us. Is what I'm trying to say. So we're not going to have a noise issue. We never have had a noise issue. Dust, we monitor the dust, we monitor the roads. We're trying to follow the criteria of the new asphalt lanes. So, I really, I don't think we'll have no issues.
Okay, anybody got any questions? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Ellis?
Did you, any follow-up statements or closing remarks?
In closing, I mean, this is it's a small mine. It's 6 acres. It's located well across the road. I think we've been through almost 16 or 18 months of permitting to get here, including we hired a archaeological, digging firm out of Winston-Salem that came. Very expensive, very time-consuming. And so we'd like you to approve this small mine in Lower Currituck.
Okay, thank you, sir. At this time, I'm going to open up public hearing, and there's a few people signed up, and I'm not sure if they've signed up to be an expert witness or not, but the first person I had signed up is Kenneth Elliott, and you were signed, okay. And then, so the next person I had was, is it Jeff?
That's me.
Okay, Maloney, okay. Then I had a Derek Hatchell. Okay, Mr. Hatchell. Next I had was is it Caleb Bell? Okay. And the last person that I had on here to speak signed up on this was Shannon O'Sullivan. You want to? No, wait, if you signed up, would you like to? If you could just state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Shannon O'Sullivan, and I live at 815 Currituck Highway. So we are adjoining properties with Foster Forbes. I do not want to take a lot of your time and waste your time. I am no expert on these matters. I have no expert witnesses for you. Unfortunately, I did not take all the time I needed to properly find out information. Unfortunately, we had a death in the family and a complete overturn of our life over the last year. So although this is important to me, I've had 3 children to take care of for the last year, which is completely new for me in 20 years. So the comments I had prepared really were very similar to my husband's. You heard my husband speak earlier during the public hearing comment session. And so it's very emotional. It's very about enjoyment of our property. We do live on a highway. We deal with traffic all day. We have for 20 years, and we get that. We understand that. We understand that our area of the county is changing, and it is moved towards different zoning. There's more light industrial, manufacturing, and things that are happening in Lower Currituck, and I understand all of that. So what I do want to make point of today, which are the only things I can really bring to you to consider, are a few things. The very first thing I do have is a question in regards to CAMA. I do see that there was paperwork submitted to the Army Corps of Engineers, in which point they did give them a jurisdiction. Well, the wetlands there are under U.S. jurisdiction, so that's a federal issue. But they did also have marked on there for the party, the applicants, to check with CAMA and speak with them about the wetlands and the waterway. I don't know if that was done. I don't see anything in this paperwork that was brought together for you today, the little packet. I don't see anything about CAMA, if they were contacted or had any input on this project. So that is one concern that I do have, and I think that's a very important concern. While it is U.S. controlled or wetlands and waterway, they have said, please contact CAMA. So I'm concerned if that was actually done. The other concern I do have is with the decibel map that was drawn for you. My question is, how did they come up with these numbers? I do understand that it was compared to another mine site. I do have questions as to the forecasting of the change, of the lowering of the decibel from the site to the residences. I'd like to know how they calculated that. Is there a logarithm? Is there an application that they used? Did they take a monitor out to the site and test that? Again, I know it was compared to another sand mine site, but every piece of property is different. Just for example, this time of year, first of all, this time of year, when you're talking about noise, the foliage that separates our area is completely different this time of year than it is in the summer. There is virtually no soap foliage I can see directly through to that property at this time of year. So that will certainly have a different impact on the decibel level, on the sound and the noise that we hear. In addition to that, our area is very unique. We're on a curve. I lived here for 20 years, and I can tell you this time of year, I can hear a car coming from the south for 4 or 5 miles, literally, before it passes my house, because of the acoustics and the geographical nature of the roadway and the way things are. So those are things that should be taken into consideration when we're talking about sound and how much it affects neighboring properties. I can't speak to the people on the other side of the highway. They have less buffering than we do as far as noise goes. So I'm not really sure how they feel about that. The other things I'd like to point out is I do have a little bit of concern with competency. I do know with the Army Corps of Engineers, the first map they submitted to them showed the overflow pipe from the retention pond going all the way to the waterway, ending in a pile of riprap right at that drainage waterway. They had to resubmit a map to the Army Corps of Engineers showing that has been changed. So that has been brought back. So there's a pile of riprap it goes the same direction, but it doesn't go all the way to the waterway. So that is a concern with someone who's been doing this for decades and decades and been doing this, putting together the applications, the maps, and all of these. I am kind of concerned as to if they have any knowledge of wetlands, CAMA, all of these things, and this is in their wheelhouse of experience, concerns me why they would have the first map drawn emptying into a drainage waterway and then had to go back and change that for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So those are some of the concerns I have. I have a lot of other concerns. I know the water will be tested monthly. I was originally told quarterly. I know they've changed that to monthly. That is the water that comes out of the sedimentation pond. That is not the drinking water. We were told originally, and I don't know if this has changed. I have not received any updated information, but we were told that drinking water, or for that depth of where our wells would be, would only be tested every 6 months. So that is in concern also. There are many, many wells, as you all have seen, on all the information, the documentation, and so that is a concern to me. I understand testing the sediment pond but the drinking water down below at the depth that our well pulls from is very important. And a 6-month check, to me, is not adequate enough when this is water that you use to bathe in, to drink, to give to your children and your pets, your gardens, on a daily basis. So that is a concern. Other than that, all my concerns are personal, and they don't really have any expert testimony to go with. So, again, thank you for your time and allowing me to speak. I very much appreciate it. And again, these are some concerns that I feel are very valid concerns. And some of these are, again, controlled by other government entities such as CAMA, Army Corps of Engineers, and all of that. So those are things I think, in our opinions, should be asked, checked out, before going ahead and issuing a permit of this type, which could certainly have effect on our quality of life just in the fact of drinking water. In addition to that, the loss of wildlife. We have a nice swath of woods in our backyard. As you heard my husband speak on earlier, we have tons of wildlife. I sat at my back door this morning listening to multiple birds and watching them and thinking, wow, with all the noise and all the activity that comes from this area, a lot of our wildlife will move on and find a more quiet, peaceful area to have their little habitat. So I will wrap that up and leave you with that. And again, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Can I ask her one question?
Yes.
Ma'am, your property, Mrs. Sullivan, your property is, are you north?
Yes.
Okay, I was just.
Yeah, there's a general business property that's about three-quarters of an acre. And then there is our property, which actually butts up to Foster Forbes at the rear setback line.
Okay. I was just trying to look at it at the map.
Yeah, the waterway is maybe 20 feet from.
They're right there. Yeah, right where that pointer's at on the map.
Yeah.
Question also, you have a background, you and your husband, in construction and real estate?
And we did. Or since he was 15. How old are you? I don't know. 35 years for him and about 20 for me.
And I know in the letter that you wrote, you said that a drop in the value of your property of about 30%.
That was a lot of independent research we did. We looked for information. I actually took 2/3 of a real estate appraisal course, which I, for other reasons, never finished. I've also worked for an appraiser in addition to doing construction and dealing with CAMA and the permitting offices of this county. That's a lot of information we did research on last year to try and see where and what values in places, how they were affected. Up to 30% was what we got from some areas. They weren't all that high. In my opinion, it seems a little odd to say that a sand mine 500 feet from your backyard, which regardless of noise or the traffic it creates, the sand in the air is a whole other ballgame. And to say that that doesn't affect the potential value of your property baffles me. We do have a daughter who is an adult, who is 30 years old, who currently lives with us. She sustained a severe traumatic brain injury in 2019. She had to have several intubations and a tracheotomy, and she has a lot of respiratory issues, asthma and other issues, scarring in her lungs, and that is a thing we deal with on a daily basis. And to add this silica in the air, which can cause also something called silicosis, which I won't go into because I'm not a medical expert, but those things are very real and very concerning as well. I'm not a medical expert, but I think it's pretty evident. So.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sullivan.
Thank you very much.
Okay, would the applicant care to address some of the questions that were raised by Mr. Sullivan?
The first issue that was raised by Ms. O'Sullivan was regarding CAMA. CAMA and the Corps of Engineers are pretty much tied together. CAMA is the state agency, and the Corps of Engineers is the federal agency. CAMA is responsible for any construction activities within 75 feet of the shoreline of any body of water in our area. Beyond that, the wetlands changed to a different type of wetland, normally called a 404 wetland, and the Corps of Engineers is responsible for those. And that is why when we got our wetlands delineated on this property, it was submitted to the Corps of Engineers, who looked at it and approved the line that was drawn. That line was drawn by Quibble and Associates and was approved by the Corps of Engineers. Mrs. O'Sullivan was questioning their method of calculation of noise values. First of all, the ambient noise levels were measured physically by a calibrated noise meter. One of the maps which you have here today shows the locations where those noise levels were reached. They're at various places ranging from 400 feet from the highway to within about 50 feet of the highway, and then stretching all the way to the back of this field at several locations there. The ambient noise levels closest to the highway were the highest levels. I believe the highest number I got was 62.5 decibels. At the back of the field, the levels were running 53 to 58 decibels. These were actual numbers which were achieved. What I did then was I took the same noise level meter. I traveled to the Pitts Chapel number 2 mine owned by Bear Garden in Elizabeth City near the Coast Guard base. The Currituck County UDO requires noise levels to be measured at property lines. And so I picked 13 sites along this property line. Of the phosphorus mine, measured those distances from the dewatering pump location, and took those same distances and measured the noise levels at the Pitts Chapel number 2 mine. I got 13 readings there. Those readings, in my opinion, correspond to the readings that should be achieved at the permit boundaries per the UDO.
Was the topography the same out there? Like it just because basically we're dealing with open farm field with a little bit of 150 feet of vegetation between the cultivated fields in the back of their house.
Similar, it was flat land, but there was no foliage.
Okay. So the sound could carry with uninhabited.
That's almost the worst case scenario, is
right.
what you're saying.
And then dewatering, she was noting a discrepancy on the overflow from the sedimentation pond. I would have to say that would have been relegated as an error. It was brought up to me by Currituck County Planning that the issue was state requires a protected outlet from any discharge from a sedimentation pond. Protection to dissipate any force of water leaving the pond. Usually that is achieved using riprap. I had the riprap extending into the riparian buffer for the Foster Forbes ditch. And that is why I backed it up on the second map, which was submitted. That's the only reason.
Okay.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And maybe this is a question for the operator / owner, but she also raised the issue with potential dust created by the vehicles. And I know in your application, and I also know this is just for your benefit, if you see dust being created, you can pick up the phone and call DEQ, and I'm sure you'd be happy to testify just how fast operations stop when DEQ gets an air quality complaint. I was not aware of that. I learned that later because we had folks with the solar farm in Moyock who had to live through living hell, right? And I only became aware of that afterwards. But that gentleman right there, Ms. O'Sullivan, is doing the big nod. He knows how bad that gets. So.
If you want to,
Sir, could you, that way we get it on record. Sorry.
That way it's recorded, yes.
You mentioned her water quality, okay? So the reason we're digging where we're digging is because the quality of sand, so it means how fast your sand water runs through your sand so it stays clean. So, as he told you about the hydration ditch, we're actually hydrating. We're moving your water and filtering and cleaning it for you, and then we'll hydrate it right back into your ground before we put it in the swamp. And that's also, we did an extra extension of putting a hydration ditch behind the back of the berm to keep water flowing, but you're on the front. So, and we've done monitoring wells. We've been monitoring these mines for years, and we've gone 35 and 40 foot deep at 750 to 800 feet. The most we've ever seen the groundwater level drop with us is 18 inches. We've got product data from the Griggs mine. We didn't do monitoring wells at the Baby Pit because we weren't close enough to nobody. But in the same fashion, we've got data from the Griggs mine that we can show you. In the same fashion, we're moving your water. We're not giving you no water. We're going to move your water to us, but we don't ever drop it enough to hurt you. And also, we filter it right back through the natural ground, the same place you're pulling it from now. So we're not doing anything to hurt you. We're about quality of work, I'll assure you. We're not hurting your water.
I'm sorry, I think when I'm talking about quality, I'm talking about the potential for hazardous leaks of diesel fuel, hydraulic fluid, and all of those things. Not the level of the water. Believe me, we don't have a problem with the level of our water. We have problems with it not running.
Okay, so we're also governed by the state. We're inspected every 3 months. All of our fuel tanks have to be double steel wall fuel tanks. We can't have anything that is not monitored or handled. As far as leaks and stuff, the state does the same thing. Of course, I don't let machines run hydraulic because they're going to burn and mess up. But in the same fashion, we monitor stuff, we watch stuff, we keep up with the stuff. We don't try to have no issues because we are governed by the state. State comes in and watches everything we do. If we do have a problem, they shut me down just like that. So.
As part of this, in regards to the fuel, I contacted Southeastern Fuels Incorporated in Coins-Up. They have been supplying commercial fuel to HOM for a number of years. According to Tony Bond, the president of the company, there have been no reportable spills that he was aware of any petroleum products in any of his mines.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing portion of this and ask the board if they have any further questions on anything from staff or the applicant. Okay, seeing that, I'm going to go ahead and close the evidentiary stage of this meeting, and I'll ask the board for a motion. Anyone, okay, well, I will go ahead then and, based on the evidence provided during this, I'm going to go ahead and move to approve the PB 2111 Foster Forbes Mines because the applicant has demonstrated the proposed use meets the special use permit review standards of the UDO. The use will not endanger the health and public safety. They're going to have the test wells installed, and they're going to be 450 feet from the highway. These will not injure the value of the adjoining or abutting lands and will be in harmony with the area in which it was located based on the testimony from the real estate appraiser. The use will be in conformity with land use plan or other adopted plans, the land use plan policy ID8, policy WQ1, policy WQ6. And the use will not exceed the county's ability to provide adequate public facilities. It will have no impact on our schools or our water supply or the, that's going to be my motion.
I'll second that.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I would like to point out why the county has a special use permit, because we used to did not. It was just a state permit. And we put this in place to address the need for buffers and the items of paving the road back to clear mud off of the tires before they go out on the trucks. That was the purpose of putting this in place.
Okay, other discussions? All right, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Would the board like to take a 5-minute recess? Okay, 5-minute recess. Thank you. All right, everyone, we're going to reconvene our Board of Commissioners meeting. The next item is under new business. New business item A, consideration of approval of Brindley Beach building.
Say that 3 times in a row, Mike, and I'll buy your lunch tomorrow.
Elevation to be located on Lot 1 Maple Commerce Park. Okay, Kevin Kemp, you have the.
Yes, sir. I'll just show you this proposal. This is the first building that is going into that Commerce Park. As the declarant to the covenants, you're also the review authority, so the planning staff is bringing forward the elevation drawings for your review and ultimate approval. Here are the east and south elevations. As you can see, it's a metal building. They've provided block skirting along these 2 elevations. These are the 2 elevations that are most visible from the street. I'll show a site plan at the end. And then there is a window you can see added on the south elevation. The north and west elevations, they're the less visible ones. There was no block skirting provided. Here is the product details of the 2 skirtings that they are proposing, or one or the other. So you can see the one on the right, more of a flat surface, the one on the left more textured. Here's the site plan just to give you an idea where the building is. The building is set towards the back of the site. All vegetation outside of the area of disturbance is being maintained. So all this dotted area here, as well as in the circle between the drive aisles, all that existing vegetation will remain. Now, ultimately, this is the first building on the site. We are told that there's plans for more buildings to expand the site. This is the main building where the laundry facility is, but then there's going to be multiple buildings to handle other operations. So, there'll be smaller buildings, but there will be more buildings on the site. Let's see. Just wanted to put this slide up here to give you an idea of what, as the reviewing authority, what you can look at. On the site, you can look at grading and landscaping plans, number and location of parking spaces, location of proposed structure, and the compatibility of use. I will say staff has reviewed this from the UDO. It does meet all those requirements. And then from an aesthetic standpoint, you can look at the elevations. You can say exteriors harmonious with neighboring structures. The closest one in this case would be the animal shelter and the cooperative, as this is the first building in the actual park. You can look at the exterior design, the materials, the appearance of materials, the color scheme, finish style, and height of the structure. Then I put this Statement at the bottom. This is a statement in the covenants that deals directly with metal buildings. It says plans that provide for metal-clad buildings will be approved only on the condition that such buildings are constructed as to not have the appearance of pre-engineered metal buildings and are designed by an architect and are specifically approved in writing by the declarant. So with that being said, I'll leave this slide up here for your review and comment.
So obviously that doesn't fall into that category you just stated at the bottom. Or, no.
It is a metal building, of course. Now, in conversations that have been had with the property owner and operator, it ties into the additional buildings that will be on the site. I think the vision for the site is, more to shield this building.
Can you go back to the property location again one more time? Are you saying the other buildings will be located where in?
Well, we don't know. My staff has yet to see an overall plan. We just know that there are future buildings.
You have an infield, and then the triangle to the left, and then this patch to the right could be.
Okay, if that patch to the right could be buildings in there, then.
But with your setback, it'd be.
Correct. There is a setback. The covenants also maintain, I believe it's a 40-foot buffer is required of existing vegetation around all the property lines. It will also be smaller buildings.
And that's each property line, each side, right?
Each side, yes.
So 80 feet in the middle.
Yes. And here, while we're on the site plan, you can see where the roadway comes in.
Minimal.
Right there. So the skirting and enhancement is along these two facades.
And if you could go forward a slide. Okay. So specifically on the comment box, the appearance of a pre-engineered metal building. And that's not necessarily, we got to come up with a different way of, like, what is the appearance of a pre-engineered, what's the effect of a pre-engineered metal building versus a post-engineered metal building? And I think that's referring to like the instant garages that can go up. Actually, I take that back. I don't know what that means, and I don't even know what that does for us. So, as a point of clarification, maybe we want to rephrase that somehow, unless someone gets it and I don't, which would be a first.
That's our. We could just take it out. I mean, it's our. If I don't care for metal buildings there.
Well, I have said from day one that is stymied anything going out there. I know that for a fact.
Yep.
And tell me an industrial park that does not have metal buildings.
I've never seen one.
It just can't appear to be pre-engineered.
They just
anyway
throw it up.
I agree. I say
take it out.
I agree, but that's for probably a different discussion.
That's a
well, no, it's for now. It's relevant now.
Well, you'll need as the declarant to amend the covenants. Now, of course, I would suspect that the owner of Lot 1 would also sign on, as they would have to now own a lot. But.
Okay.
It's easier now than later.
Yep. I think we all agree on it.
Yep. There's not many industrial parks that don't have buildings that could be interpreted to be pre-engineered metal buildings.
Well, I mean, I think when these covenants were adopted about 2013, there was a different vision at the time, I think, for the Commerce Park.
Right.
If you build it, they will come.
Right.
And they never did.
It never materialized.
Right. Okay.
Remember they kept saying, go the distance.
They're getting closer.
And I'm glad that there's, thank you. I'm glad you could provide some insight on that.
Activity breeds activity.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we're going to, okay.
All right. So we have someone from Coastal Engineering here, I believe, tonight. You hear? To speak for the applicant. Is that what do we got to do, Ike? This is the first time for us.
Well, I mean,
Obviously,
again, it's up to the board as a declarant to decide whether you're going to accept these elevations and this style of building to be constructed in the park. You've already indicated you intend now, probably at your next meeting, to change the covenant provision to remove the metal-clad building limitation. And secondly, I'll just tell you that there's another provision in the covenants that basically any decision you make cannot be challenged. So,
wow, that was a nice word we put in for ourselves.
It rests with the board.
So do we need to make that change at the next meeting and then take action on this, or?
That probably would be the best process to
Okay.
change your covenants and then to
So then
approve something that would be
move this to the
compliant.
next meeting.
Now, I would offer that if that's the case, if we go bring this for approval at the next meeting, then in that time frame, we talk to the applicant about this east elevation. That is the one side that can be seen from the road, and at least put a couple windows in there instead of just a broad side of a building. Which, when you drive in, the east elevation is the side of the building you see.
Or, perhaps at least maybe the appearance of a window.
They could do fake windows.
Could do like the Dollar General.
Like the Dollar General.
With a horse peeking out.
Some of our other metal buildings have been able to do that.
Right. That would be the only thing that I would
We've
like
worked.
to see.
We've worked well with them, and staff is happy to reach out and see, with the direction that the board suggested this.
Yeah, give me a couple fake windows and
we can get on that.
Jazz that up just a little bit.
East elevation. East elevation is this top one. So that's when you can turn in off the road. The driveway comes, both sides come.
And
Pardon?
The north of the. Did you?
I can make a comment. The existing vegetation in front of that building is quite tall.
Right. We're thinking of future. If the vegetation goes away, what have you got? You've got a stark metal building staring at you, right? So
At least on the front of it.
Because there's also nothing that would prevent you from just logging that.
those are some nice pine trees, right?
To make some pencils.
Some.
But the point being, you could take those trees out, and then we've got the building.
So, okay.
Would you like to make
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'll move to bring this back at our next meeting. Let me pull a calendar.
February, hold on, I can tell you. February 7th.
February 7th, to our February 7th meeting, and approval at, or
I'll second
actually at that time.
As the commissioner that represents that district.
Thank you. That was nice of you.
At large.
Could it be done at the retreat
No.
to accelerate it for them to get started?
I don't know
It's
how
only a
close they
couple
are
days.
to actually getting started. I don't know what other steps we have to take with planning.
I don't know if you need to rush that fast. I mean,
It's 2 weeks.
yeah, it's 2 weeks. We can get time to draft it.
We
strike it, and then
can make the changes and adopt this.
And then so.
Isn't this the last step? Yeah,
She lives in Currituck.
we've been
I talked to her
working with
boss.
them, so as far as getting through the planning process, I believe this is the last step in the process. So once they clear this hurdle.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to move this to the next meeting, following a rewrite to take that
Minor editing.
language out. So, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, thank you. We'll take this up at the next meeting, February, I think it's 8th. The next item is the consent agenda.
Move for approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion, consent agenda?
I'd like to say that the surplus resolution on the K-9, that was a donated dog, so the county didn't have any money in that at all. It was but it
saw
has assigned an asset tag, and the reason why we have to surplus is we have a grant where we're getting another dog to replace that dog.
And although it was given to the county, it became county property, so we've got surplus.
Oh, yeah, because it has an asset tag. So I mean, just don't want, we're not donating
dogs can be
something that was 10
conflicted
grand.
about
Robin, a floppy-eared
surplus.
dog or a pointy-eared dog?
Pointy-eared dog.
Don't tell him. Just tell him he's retired.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, we had a motion.
In accordance with the regular practice with
Yeah.
other dogs.
Okay, we had a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Thank you. At this time, I'll recess from our regular meeting and move into the special meeting of the Tourism Development Authority for the TA, first item of TDA budget amendment.
What page that was on?
Let me find the factual page on this real quick.
27.
That?
127.
7.
Yeah, I'm still.
Very organized.
Yeah.
Mine's not moving.
Oh,
My gosh, okay. No.
on beach grass. Okay. And what else do we have in there?
Still going.
Thought I caught this today.
Probably be-
The walkovers
The grant to
Pumper.
for the.
to Corolla.
Yeah.
Volunteer Fire Department.
Okay.
And there's one more.
Health insurance. Store Crawl Park.
Maritime Museum.
All right. Move to approve.
Second.
A motion, a second. Any further discussion on the budget amendment? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay, at this time, I'll reconvene into our regular meeting and,
Put the
let's see.
Move to adjourn the
Yeah,
TDA.
yeah, move, let me get a motion to adjourn
So moved.
our TDA, excuse me. I have a motion,
Second.
and a second to adjourn. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All
Aye.
opposed? Okay, now we'll reconvene into a regular meeting. And at this time, we're going to convene into
So let me make-
I'm sorry? A closed session, make a motion, go to closed session and pursuant to GS 143-318.11, A6 to discuss personal matters.
All right.
Okay,
Second.
okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. All right.